Welcome to episode 40 of The Bench. Today, we are powered by Wowhead, and Tettles is face palming into his hands at this intro. But we found out this week the real war within. It is the Raiders versus the Mythic Plusers in the Battle of the Dinars. Tettles, you are already putting your head down. What's going on? We're just going to hop straight in.
In other news, I'm rating completely unrelated to anything that's going to be discussed this week. Yeah, I decided to start rating again. How have you been, Squishy?
I've been good. I've been loving the drama. This is the real content of the patch for me. Just watching the drama on Twitter, Reddit, like I'm enjoying this.
Who was it who said that we needed more PvE or drama? Was it you?
No, it wasn't me. Was it Growl?
I mean, I'll always take more drama.
Okay.
How are you doing, Growl? You're looking swag in that new fur coat.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting week. Everyone's gone either doing Final Fantasy or doing MDI, so I've been slumming it on the streets. I actually realized that I've done like 50 keys on Mage this week, and I haven't even filled up my vault on my Priest. So, yeah, I've just been on the grind playing some Mage. Lots and lots of stuff to talk about this week. Let's see, we can start with an update from my guild. Puddles, I'm glad to hear that you're looking for a guild. We may have a range slot opening up. Our most geared player in our guild has been permanently banned. So this is during Mugsy Prague. We have 170 pulls on Mugsy. We've not killed the boss yet. We have a 1% pull, whereas we looked at the logs and we noticed 2 players did 0 damage in the entire last phase, only to find out that they just DC'd and were gone the entire time. We've been just absolutely getting owned by DCs. The servers were getting DDoS during our last raid night, and we just literally rage quit out of raid as a guild collectively because every single pull somebody was DCing. But luckily, the Hall of Fame has been extended to next week. So as long as Gallywix doesn't take us 200 pulls, which, I mean, 50-50 chance at this point, I think we still might have a shot.
Okay, I have a question. How hard is the movement on Mugsy and Sprocketmonger in particular? Because I got to do some research on some bosses.
So Sprocket is a pretty chill dance fight once you get the movement down. Like, once you memorize it, it's not too bad, and it's not too long of a fight. The only hard part I would say is, like, you have the knockbacks where you get sent on the conveyor belts, and then you have to, like, be on the conveyor belts and do damage, and it can probably be pretty hard to do damage in that part. Mugsy is a longer, more annoying dance fight where it's a lot less scripted. Like, it depends on, did you get this soak? Did you get this thing? Like, where do you go? More of like a thinking kind of a dance fight. But I would say they're not too bad, neither one of them.
Yeah,
well, after the nerfs, at least.
Sprocket's a lot of memorization, though, for range, because you have to know where to bait drills, I think, is the big thing.
Yeah,
yep.
It's one of those things. It's like, I like know all the mechanics, obviously, from casting the race, but then it's like, I don't know the strategy exactly of the boss in like a compact way. It's more just like you watch people do it, but you didn't like, I wasn't looking at it in the sense of, you're moving here, and then next you're moving there. I'm like, oh god.
Here, Tettles, I linked you something. You can pull this up if you want. I made this for my guild. And it basically shows on one page all of the movements and where people should stand.
Wow.
All the drill baits are on there too. So you can basically you can have this on your second monitor and you'll know exactly where to go every time.
The only rule is don't fuck up, I think. I don't know if damage really matters. It's just like, especially when you're joining a new guild and you're killing a boss that you haven't killed before, the only rule is don't wipe your raid.
Yep. But I think that's enough of the guild talk for now. I think we're going to go straight into the Dinar talk. And Tettles, I know you have a lot to say on this topic, so why don't you start us off?
Okay, so I suspect most people know what's going on. If for some reason you don't, we were talking about Dinars probably for the last, what would we say, like 2 months? And Blizzard finally released some information about the Puzzling Cartel chip, or the Dinar. And the title of this post, very greatly worded, more on earlier Puzzling Cartel chip loot without changes to MythTrack acquisition, Blizzard update. And so Blizzard, this is the second blue post that Blizzard released. Blizzard released an initial blue post where they begin to say, that you were going to be getting 6 cartel chips and you were going to get 1 per week from killing 4 bosses in the raid. And the most notable thing about the entire situation was that being able to purchase items with this was not similar to the Omni token that we had in Dragonflight. Instead, it required you to be able to kill a boss on either heroic difficulty if you wanted that item on heroic, or mythic difficulty if you wanted that item on mythic. And it was a form of bad luck protection. And if you listened to the episode last week, Squishy, I think, was actually accurately described what the system could potentially be. And yeah, so now players, this is, instead of deterministic loot, it is pure bad luck protection for raiders only. On top of that, they are extending out the heroic and myth track by 6 item levels with a feature that they call turbocharged gear. Is that right?
Something like that. It's the eventers.
Yeah. Turbo boost, yeah. So the content is going to get a little bit easier just as a whole. The raid's going to get a little bit easier. It's going to be a little bit easier to get 3 KIO. All these static rewards are going to get a little bit easier just as a whole. And people are quite upset about the fact that I would say the system doesn't benefit everybody. It only is bad luck protection for raiders. Would you say that's fair?
I have a slightly. I mean, yes.
I think the label raiders is a little bit like
people who participate in mythic level raiding,
right? Because there are plenty of people that do multiple different forms of content.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Not just raiders.
So, I actually think them taking this off the Renown track was a mistake, and the communication on this topic was also a mistake.
I tend to agree.
They led people to believe that these puzzling cartel chips, or dinars, were going to be available to everyone. They took them off the raid Renown track, but they're mostly for raiders, meaning you needed to raid, so I think they actually belong better on there. But it was made in a way that, and said in a way that made a lot of people think that this was going to help them get some bis loot, like it was in the past. This was the only blue post that Tettles has it up here that was on the topic. And it says, similar get at Dragonflight Season 4 Booleans and Shadowlands Season 4 Dinar. These are intended to have their own upgrade track, which means they'll scale to the maximum rank of 14 given enough crests and Valor Stones. This could change before launch, but the intent is for these to be fully upgradable and usable by anyone that reaches this point and not locked or conditioned to certain difficulties.
Doesn't sound like what happened.
Yeah. The keyword there, doing a lot of heavy lifting, is this could change before launch.
So, for a little bit of a history, Dinars got introduced at the end of Shadowlands for the first time, and that was when they did the first, what do you call it, the season at the end where they rotate through all the different raids, Faded or whatever. And part of that was, well, if you only do a raid once every 3 weeks, and the season is shorter, it's going to be a lot harder to get those, rare items. And so they kind of just put that into the game to allow people to get those. And people were like, this is great. This is, Dinars are the greatest system ever. I love being able to get the items that I want. They should have this all the time. The issue with that, right, is it kind of undermines the process of very rare items from the raid in the first place. Like, if they're not very rare and you don't have to do the raid to get them, it's like, well, the problem is that they're putting the very rare items in the raid, not that, dinars are not dinars.
Yeah.
So they basically weren't happy with the system and they didn't return it, at least in any normal season. And then it got data mined in this patch that it was going to be in some capacity. Unfortunately, it's really hard for the player base to sort of like get something and then walk it back and then, be like, okay, now here's a less good version of this. People really, really don't like that. And while I sympathize with Blizzard in trying to create an experience where people feel like they're earning the items and that the items are good to get, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, I think they just took a huge unnecessary L with this Dinar system in that, like, the community's expectations for what they were going to get and what was going to happen in this raid tier was already, all right, we're getting our freaking Dinars back. They're giving it to us.
Yeah.
I'm buying all the trinkets. I'm buying the Jaster Diamond. Like, the community had already made up its mind on that. And regardless, like, for better or for worse, like, they just needed to realize that it's going to be a huge shitstorm, right? And I really feel like Blizzard, is it really worth the 13 item levels? Like, you know, for the people who won't be able to kill Mythic One-Armed Bandit, is it really worth holding them back on the 13 item levels on that House of Cards just to, like, in return, making everybody who doesn't raid pissed off? Like, I think it was just an unnecessary L that Blizzard took. Like, I understand what they're trying to go for here, but I think it was just like, you know, if you would have just read the room here and saw what was happening with Dinars, we even kind of pointed out last week that Blizzard has kind of dug themselves a hole now where the community has this expectation about Dinars, and I think they should have just eaten. They literally should have just eaten the L and been like, all right, here's your Dinars, buy whatever you want, you get them, you know, blah blah blah, and then maybe, you know, again, not return them in a future patch or try to figure out a way to do it better that's more in line with their vision.
So this, I would describe, has sparked a very heated debate between Mythic Plusers and anybody who enters the raid at all. You don't have to necessarily even be a raider, but if you enter the raid at all, Mythic Plusers are mad at you, especially if you raid Mythic, because Mythic Plusers are... I would say they feel slighted because they see these raiders getting this way of deterministically obtaining very cool loot, and they feel like they should at least have some skin in the game, right? Some ability to be able to obtain like cool loot in a similar way. Yeah. And I think that the very rare items are probably the most problematic of these. I've ran some numbers, and honestly, I'm looking at this a little bit. And, you know, from season to season, if it was just trinkets, I don't think that people would be this mad, because some seasons your BIS trinkets come from Mythic Plus, which means that you can only get them out of the Great Vault. And some seasons your BIS trinkets come from the raid, and that's just kind of the nature of things. But more often than not, we're talking like 0.5% damage difference between BIS trinkets that come from raid versus BIS trinkets that come from Mythic Plus. And if something's like really OP that comes from Mythic Plus or from raid, you can have either of them on hero track, and it doesn't really matter. Now, the issue is the Jaster Diamond, the best in slots, the Galley Tech limited edition items, that kind of thing, right? Where you're able to get these very powerful items that have cantrip effects or very strong secondary effects that are unacquirable in any other capacity, and Mythic Plusers don't have a really good conduit or avenue in order to be able to obtain these kind of similar things. And so they feel like they're slighted, and I see the Mythic Plusers, this is my mini game, I'm a mini game player. People proven once again that raiders are superior, and Blizzard always views raiders as superior, which I don't think is true. I just want to get out in front of this and say, I actually don't think Mythic Plus is a minigame. I think that Blizzard views all PvE players in a similar bucket, and they view PvE avenues as complementary to one another, even though the players want them to be a little bit more distinct and have, you know, Mythic Plusers want gearing from Mythic Plus only to be a viable option and not feel like you're at a significant disadvantage. Raiders don't want to do 10s. They want to do 10s for gear, but we're going to talk about 10s for gearing in a second, but they don't want to do 10s for gearing. But this has kind of created this feeling where Mythic Plusers believe that they're at a significant disadvantage. Whether they are or not is almost irrelevant. It's that they feel like they are. And I did some sims, and my character is like, the difference between going from heroic to myth track Jaster Diamonds is probably around 3% damage, which isn't like a small gain, but it's not like a full key level or anything, but it's not a small gain. 3% damage is... If somebody's 3 item levels higher in LFG, you're probably taking them.
Yeah. I mean,
I think when you talk about M plusers versus raiders too, a big issue is that, you know, and again, you know, you want to make the argument that if you're a good raider and a good M pluser, maybe you should have slightly better gear, but already, especially in a season like this, like the gear that you get from M plus is pretty limited in terms of like, okay, you get your weekly vault, but any Mythic Raider can do a weekly vault, right? That's not like people are struggling with that. And so, you know, if you raid, you're just getting more items in general. And like, this is the part of the season where the Raiders are really have the biggest gap up over the M plus only players, right? Because they're clearing the last 3 bosses. They're getting these very rare items. We're seeing people that are like 676 or whatever, you know, probably like 5-6 item levels above most like only M plus players. And the system has sort of seen like, I don't know, the rich get richer in a way, right? Like the people who are already clearing the raid, who are already having an item level advantage, also get these dinars where they can buy these, already they've gotten maybe one of the 3 rare items they need, and now they can get a dinar and get 2 of the rare items they need. Whereas the person who's only been doing M plus, well, I mean, technically you could get one from heroic, and that's not so bad, but it's seen as if the raiders are getting even more gear than they were already getting, and they already had an advantage in LFG and groups and stuff.
Yeah. So I think the big thing here is the feeling. I think a lot of people were just bait and switched.
Yep.
Right. Like
I think that's a huge part of it. Yes, for sure.
That is a huge thing. If the entire way, like they said, they said in the blue post, this is subject to change. If they came out like 2 months ago and were like, hey, what we're doing here is not that anymore. Here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. Here's the plan going forwards. I think there would still obviously be people that are disappointed.
Oh, people still would have been pissed.
But you absolutely cut a good chunk of it who have that initial like, what the heck? Like, I was excited for it. Now this patch is literally nothing for me. Right? Like, I was super excited to get my Jaster Diamond, my best in slot, stuff like that. And I bet you there were people who probably even made gearing decisions around it.
There are definitely some people who have made gearing decisions around it. Whether or not they're crafting a ring or not, whether or not they were crafting a weapon or not, like those decisions were made.
Yeah, and like one of the biggest things I would say is a bad luck protection system like this should never be announced midway through a patch, because people have already invested and made decisions based on a system. Why the heck did they announce this after the patch? We kind of discussed this last week. It's like, this could have been announced the week before the patch, and nothing would have changed. So why did you wait even longer? And realistically, I think Blizzard really dropped the ball in communication here. Like, do the experiment, fine, but talk to people. Otherwise, you're going to end up with this every single time.
I will say that I think the gear differences between Raid and Mythic Plus is kind of one of the biggest points of friction. Like, I really don't understand why Blizzard continues to give a gear advantage to Raiders. I would actually start to look to change the gearing system for Mythic Plus as a whole. I think that like Mythic Plus having spammable gear that's acquired from 10s is terrible. I don't know anybody. I mean, it's not that there's 0 people who are like this, but I don't really know anybody who likes farming keys for hero track gear either. It's just not very fun. And like I don't know why there is this distinct gear advantage that's always given to Raiders every single season, and I feel like it has to be this that Blizzard views all PvE in like the same bucket, right? Like where they assume players are going to be doing both. Like that's the only reason that would ever make sense, that you would continue to give gear advantage to Raiders. But like I think that there's a continuously larger and larger growing set of people who don't want to interact with the raid at all, whether it be due to logistical reasons, whether it due to the accessibility of raiding, or whatever it may be. There's a growing amount of people who just don't really want to interact with the raid on a mythic level, but they could, right? Like they're skilled enough to be able to. And then Blizzard's like, yeah, so we're just going to go ahead and give all this loot to these mythic raiders and make you feel worse about your decision. It's kind of like in Shadowlands Season 1, whenever PvP gear was the best, I was kind of in shambles because I'm good enough at PvP to be able to get 2100 really early on, or 2400 even, and get the gear from PvP. But I'm not that good at Arena. Like I'm like, okay.
Right, like that's a grind.
Exactly. So it's like a grind for me. So then I'm like, in my head, I'm like, it's one of those things that's like, I should do it, but like, God, I really don't want to. Like, God, I really want to.
I have a question for you based on that. Like you said, raid gear is better. Would you feel the same way if this was introduced last season, when the best trinkets were not from raid? Because last season,
my best trinkets were from Treacherous Transmitter and Spymaster's Web were
that's fair. There were some trinkets that were good for raid, but there were also a lot of trinkets that were bis from Mythic Plus.
That's right.
Eggshell. You had Gale of Shadows. You had Scardins.
So it's a little bit different. I think maybe I heard this from Growl, but part of the problem too is that the most valuable pieces from this season are also off the last 3 bosses.
From raid.
Yeah, well, no, they're off of One Arm Bandit, Muggsy, and Gallywix.
Oh, okay.
Where last season, you wanted the Sickran neck. I mean, that fight is an absolute joke. Like, realistically, did I want the Ansarek ring? Yeah, but I mean, the Insurrect ring wasn't like that much better than other stuff, right? It's kind of like relative power, where this time it's best in slots and it's Jasper Diamond and then it's House of Cards or Mug Moxie's Jug, and I'm just like, wait, well, hold on.
No, because that was my thought.
It's about like relative power too, and I think that those items are honestly just too good as part of the problem.
If Dinars came out in season 1, I think you still have people that are like obviously upset, but I feel like you could live without a Ansurek ring on Mythic.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you could live without you couldn't live without Spy Masters, that's a lie. You couldn't live without Treacherous, but like one item for each spec versus like a suite of 3 to 4 bis things. Like House of Cards is massively over budget. Like everybody knows it, but it's still a thing. And I think that's kind of like, would this have worked better in a different season? I think the answer is yes. I think everything is just lining up to make this feel incredibly bad for people right now.
This is the worst version of this entire thing for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of feels like they did it on purpose, right? And not in like a bad way, but they saw the last couple seasons. There were raid items that people wanted, but it did kind of feel like the value of raiding went down ever since they added the crafting system, right? Because then you could, get additional myth track pieces in the other slots other than just what you get out of your vault, right? And then, so it does feel like they don't want to lose that sanctity of raid, and they want there to be a reason to raid. And then it did kind of feel like the introduction of the Dinars went hand in hand with that, right? Of, okay, well, we'll throw everybody a bone at the halfway point of the season. If you're not raiding, you can get your items, which, in my opinion, if you look at the player numbers and like how many people probably drop off and play the game significantly less by, month 3 of the season, I don't see why. I can't imagine throwing people Dinars 3 or 4 months into the season is a bad thing, unless, like, I don't know. I mean, is the fact that Tettles has to raid now a good thing? I mean, maybe.
I like raiding. For the record as well, I'm not purely raiding for Dinars. You guys, I mean, as long as we've been doing the podcast, I've been questioning whether or not I wanted to come back and start raiding again. I'm somebody who actually likes raiding. I like progression. I actually hate the logistical bullshit that surrounds raiding, particularly farm. I think that farm raids are some of the least fun that I actually have in the game, particularly if I have to raid a second or a third day on farm. It is terribly unfun for me. Like if I have to show up on a Thursday, it's like I'm quitting. Like, dude, I'm over it. The alt split runs nonsense too is also just egregiously unfun. It's all logistical stuff that stopped me from raiding. It was very rarely I don't dislike the content. I'm also a content creator. Like, I have enough time. I can raid. I'm not some guy who's like got a sporadic schedule and can't make the time.
Yeah. I think this is going to be one of the easiest farm raids of all time, though.
It's all good. I'm showing up
with 12% more damage. This turbo boost coming up. There's also the improved consumables buff that is coming up at I think in 2 weeks or something. Which is just like, this is, and I'm sure that they're going to have to nerf one arm band again because that fight is still disgusting. But yeah,
I mean, I would never raid as like a pump and dump either, right? Where I'm just like there to get the gear and then just like bail on the guild. Yeah. Like for me, it's like I like raiding, but I think raid needs to be more accessible as part of it too. It's one of those things it's kind of weird because is it easy to pug high-end Mythic Plus content? No, not really. But within reason, you actually could. There is a approximate 0% chance if I got my friends together, right? It would say it was me and Growl's alt and Dorky's alt and Terrathal and Greg and Evade and Dazer's alt Ret Paladin. We're not strolling up to the one-armed bandit and killing him on like a boys' weekend, right? We're not showing up on a Friday and killing the bandit. It's just like not happening. It's not a thing. But doing Mythic Plus at like a really high level without like a ton of extra nonsense is much easier, but I don't really know what the solution is. I'm always advocating for 10-man to return, and I think that would help reduce the friction with the logistical nonsense that I've been describing with raid. I do think that 10-man would help alleviate some of it, but I don't know if it would necessarily fix the entire thing. But I do think it'd help a lot. It's like pick up raids and stuff like that.
Yeah,
because I think raid's about the right difficulty right now. I think just difficulty-wise, this feels about right.
Growl, do you have thoughts on accessibility?
Um, I really hate the Mythic lockout system. I think
Mhm.
that it's very, very archaic, and it like exists almost exclusively to artificially force people to, bind together and be in a guild. The problem is just like it just hurts pugging too much. Like people are doing weird stuff where you like this is what pugs do now. You jump out of the building of the raid and you skip the first boss to
Yeah.
go to the hardest possible boss to make sure that you can kill that because you don't want to get stuck with one boss and then a dog shit group. And it's like, man, that feels like not intended or good gameplay. Like why not just, oh, let's just give this group a shot and see how it goes. And if it's bad, I can bail because I don't get locked out to these 19 people for the rest of the week. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Like, what Settles was saying is also true. Like, it's not like if you remove the lockout, we're all going to roll up to One Armed Bandit, but you never know, right? Like, I feel like that does leave some opportunity for some, pugs or whatever to, okay, well, let's prog sticks a little bit. Let's prog sprocket a little bit and just see what happens.
In a Friday raid, could we kill One Armed Bandit? Like, is there ever a chance that we kill that boss?
Deep
so.
farm, maybe.
Deep farm, yeah.
Just keep in mind that raid's gonna get another like 10 item levels, and I mean, but it's not fair because this roster that you're talking about is like not only filled with elite players, but also half of which have already done the raid.
World first
like, it's
raiders
not like,
and people actually are raiding, right?
Yeah, like these aren't 20 people that are rolling up to the boss that have never seen it before. These are like, 12 people that have already killed this boss 20 times, and then 8 people who are extremely good who just don't happen to be raiding this tier.
Yeah. The Mythic rating is so odd. I don't know what the downsides to removing the lockout would be, but I feel like it should just happen at this point.
Yeah.
I'm kind of at that point because I think just a lot of people are just not doing it for that reason. And people are just going to do what makes the most sense to them, which is going to Cauldron first, then coming back to Vexy after, and so everybody is locked into the group and is going to stay until Vexy dies. Like, I don't think that's healthy either. But I guess in a way, that's exactly what they wanted to do, which is to stay with your group. But it also leads to a lot of not flexibility, which kind of sucks.
So circling back a little bit, I actually still cannot figure out why Blizzard keeps giving a gear advantage to raiders just in general. Like, I don't even, like, I think raid content's pretty good. Is it that they feel like they have to be able to continue to keep the ecosystem alive, or is it just that they view... Because I actually don't think that they view raid as like more important than Mythic Plus, especially whenever you look at all the changes that they've been making towards Mythic Plus. Clearly, they view that as a legitimate in-game pillar. I can't figure out why they keep giving a gear advantage to raid, though.
Well, I think it just comes down to the fact that their goal is to create memorable experiences and, get the players to go in a direction to do stuff. And I feel like when you're in a guild and you're raiding with the same people every day and you're fighting really, really hard bosses, while it's frustrating as hell, it is the most likely way that, like I'm certainly gonna fucking remember what is that boss, Silken Cord or whatever, like probably longer than I'm gonna remember the Dawnbreaker, even though I had a lot of fun pushing high keys on Dawnbreaker just because of like all the nonsense that happened with my guild. And so I think that's sort of their point, is like, if they allow people to do whatever they want, everyone's going to take the path of least resistance, and that may involve like, not really having that fun of a tier, like if you think about, while it's true that us, like collectively, when we do Mythic Plus, we also are like playing with people regularly and forming friendships and creating moments because we're doing really high keys. A majority of people, the way they interact with the system is they just don't.
Yeah.
Like they just slam into Group Finder and play with random people and like, TYBB at the end of the key. And like, if they don't have any guild or any sort of friends or whatever, like I think they're a lot less likely to stick to the game. I don't think it's as cut and dry as, raid isn't good enough, so people won't do it unless you make the rewards OP. And you also have to keep in mind too that, I mean, since WoW has been a thing, there is this formulation of how you gear up, right? Like You do the campaign, you level up your guy, maybe you do some open world content to get some base gear, then you go into dungeons, you start farming enough gear to go into the raid, then the raid is like the best gear, and you keep raiding till you get that gear, and then eventually the next raid comes out, right? That's like sort of how WoW has always been, and it's only recently are there people who like play WoW and are really serious about it and play it a shit ton and also don't interact with the raid or have any interest in doing the raid at all, right? And they see it as like a side thing. Whereas like, and also I would wonder like what the numbers of everybody looks like. Like I know the people around me that there are a lot of M+ers, but like, if you were if you looked at all the players collectively, I think that might still be like a huge majority of the way that people see the game is, the raid is the end product and you boot up the game, you farm up your gear from dungeons to raid, and then you go into the raid, and then that's sort of like the climax and the end of it or whatever.
Dinars. So I actually think that this is a system that they thought of in a vacuum, because they were like, we want to add bad luck protection to the game, which is something people have been asking for a while.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I want to have more choice and curb that bad luck when I don't get an item for the entire season. And I think that is really, really good. Just, we are not in a vacuum. And as adding the system, this system is good bad luck protection for raiders.
I think it's great for raiders. Like that is, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think it's great bad luck protection for raiders.
The perception across the entire game, though, is that it's definitely affecting one side more than the other, which isn't great. And I think that's their major problem right now, is one side feels rather left behind. Now, that being said, Mythic Plus got a whole massive overhaul this time around, so you could argue, like, where is the focus actually going? But, like, overall, the feeling right now is, where's my bad luck protection? And I think their update, where they were like, oh, we're changing it so you get 3 Dinars, actually made things worse. I think that actually made things worse, because all you're doing is you're contributing more to the rich get richer mentality.
Right.
Yeah.
When, realistically, I think they're like, as somebody that will benefit from this system, I think they're being too generous with this bad luck protection. The bad luck protection should be bad luck protection and not a gearing process. And right now it's kind of erring more on that side.
I mean, I think it's due to like when it's actually coming out. Like, it is coming out really early. There's also, it's kind of weird because there are specific subsets of people who actually aren't really going to benefit from this. Think about the people who get cutting edge, but they don't get cutting edge until really late in the tier. They're not really buying anything with their Dinar, right? Like, there's like a decent amount of people who actually aren't going to get that much benefit. But then there's a lot of people who will see their peers, right? And those peers will have killed bosses on Mythic that they haven't, and they will have better gear than them. And so, of course, those people are going to feel like stunted in their own gameplay, even though because that other person had the time and the availability to be able to raid whenever that individual might not have had that time, or honestly just didn't want to raid.
I only need 2 items. That third Dinar for me is going to waste. I have nothing to buy with it. I just need a Jaster, and just give me Mog. I need a Jug, and I need Jaster, and that's it. And I'm done. I
do think that there's a pretty big issue that there's not a conduit for Mythic Plus players at all. I think it would have been maybe a little bit better received if you could buy things like Mythtrax into the Priory, Mythtrax Euphorium Pacemaker. I don't know. There's no weapons that you would buy from Mythtrax, but you get what I'm saying.
Here's a cook. All right, so there's a problem in the game right now. I was talking about this with somebody, and right now there's a problem where after you get your tier set, the catalyst is fucking useless as shit, and you just stack up charges. What if the catalyst turned into like a more of a transmutation thing, where you can trade a Mythtrack trinket for a charge into another Mythtrack trinket of your choice?
Like random?
I don't know. Didn't get that far. I mean, I don't know specifics, but just there's some way.
So, I think that I would have preferred if the Vault was the BLP. And I think we've talked about this a couple times. I think the Vault does a decent job of tying raid and open world content and Mythic Plus all together. I think it does an okay job of doing that. I think the Vault should have been the BLP in some capacity, and then that way you're not having to make this weird decision as to like whether or not you're like mythic rating or doing mythic plus, or and then at least the BLP affects all parties involved. That way you know the people who aren't getting anything out of this mythic plusters in this instance at least could have gotten something out of it if the vault was that universal tie-in. But I don't know, I feel like that's decent. I still think that there are bigger loot issues at play here, particularly the fact that tens are farmable hero track gear. You get substantially less myth track gear if you're a pure mythic plus only player, and then the very rare items from raid. I think that those three things are like the bigger things that I would be looking to change, and I would actually just completely rework the mythic plus loot system where you're no longer farming low level keys for gear. There's going to be some cap on how much hero track pieces of gear that you can get, and probably change it in some capacity to be less cringe. Make it to where you can actually get a little bit more myth track pieces, but like on average, you know, somebody who's raiding, pure raider, is getting, you know, the vault piece plus 1 or 2 additional pieces from raid a week, where somebody who's doing mythic plus, you're only getting 1 myth track piece a week. That's kind of weird. Doesn't really feel that fair. I think that there's probably something there that I would try to make them a bit more even in terms of gearing. I don't know if what you said about the catalyst would necessarily solve the issue here. Do you like deterministic gear? Like, do you think deterministic gear is good for the game?
The problem is WoW is drifting further and further away from the game, like an MMO fun experience type of game, and more into a competitive, serious min-max.
It's like
right?
a lobby game. It's turning into a lobby game for sure.
And I feel like, you know, so if you were to ask me the question, like, do you like deterministic gear? I mean, I played poker professionally for 10 years. Like, I'm one of the biggest degenerates that you'll ever hear of. Like, I love gamble. I think the idea of having, like, a legendary item that one guy on the server has that just slams everybody and does double their damage, I think that's hilarious, and I think that's awesome. But WoW just isn't the type of game for that nowadays. And I think that, like, while I think deterministic gearing is super boring and not very fun and whatever, like, you know, when you are competing to get into a group for Mythic Plus and everybody cares about every point of damage and all these numbers about your DPS and your item level and your raider IO, like, when everything is scrutinized so heavily, you know, do you get a raid spot? And it all comes down to, you know, how good you are, but also what items do you have. I think it's like you sort of have to deterministically gear people to some extent. Like, you know, if you can play a lot at a high level and be really, really far behind other players in gear, I think that's really, really bad for WoW in its current state.
I think the legendaries that we had last expansion are a pretty good example of exactly what you just described there. Can you imagine if Fearlath or the Evoker legendary Naziro, whatever, imagine if those weren't required. Like, imagine if you couldn't like always guarantee that you were getting them. I had a friend who was playing a Ret Paladin, and he got that legendary, I swear, at like the last possible point of which the BLP kicked in and finally gave him the legendary. He goes, "Here, take it." And that guy didn't log in for like 4 weeks other than to kill Fireack, and then logged out depressed because he felt like he was not able to contribute what he should be able to because he was being held back by the game. And I think that Dinars, you know, obviously they're not as strong as Fearlath. Fearlath is like 5 to 7% damage increase, so it's clearly not as strong as that. But Dinars, to a lesser degree, are kind of similar, where, you know, if you feel like you're artificially being held back, whether it is the truth or not, you're going to be upset at the system.
Yeah. There's, you know, we talked about how people play the game in the past. And right now, the way to play the game is to optimize, because that has been deemed to be the right way to play the game.
Yeah.
And if you're not playing the game correctly, you're not going to get invited. And because of this, like, it's a very chicken and the egg thing. But because of this optimization, Blizzard is forced to make encounters require optimization. You know, you're not going to go in and kill some of these bosses, especially this tier, week 1, unless you optimize gear on some, you know, at least I'd say like 50% of, you know, what Liquid had week 1. There is a level of optimization that needs to be done. The game keeps pushing players into further and further optimization on their gear, on their skill, on their coordination, on like so many different aspects, you know, that players are struggling to keep up now, and therefore, whenever there's a power difference, like there's a cycle here where Blizzard does that, then players are like, oh, we need to keep up. We need to get every inch of power that we need to. And so players will continue to optimize further. And it's just this nasty cycle where players in WoW continue to optimize more and more and more. And Blizzard continuously also has to keep optimizing their stuff more and more.
It's kind
when
of
realistically,
it's kind of funny because those things aren't required. It's more of a player perception thing, right? You would probably be better off doing more. You'd probably be better off doing more research or being more informed about the systems. But
I mean, that's like one of the most common things of like, you know, some guy will come into my chat and he's like, I have 16.2% crit and 20.4% mastery and this and this and this. And it's just like, dude, just learn your fucking rotation. You know, like why you like you're just, you know, when people say your best stats are ace verse, just, or, you know, if you care than sim, like, you know, that's what you should do. Like, that's the best advice. But the problem is like, it's the mix of perception and also just what people want to do. Like, people don't want to like study and get really good at the encounters and like do the small minutia that they don't find as exciting. And I don't know what it's making me think. I feel like I've been a little bit tame on this discussion, but I'm gonna maybe piss some people off here. But just food for thought. I know people don't like to hear this, but I mean, we're very competitive and we take things seriously and like, but like sort of what Tuttle said, right? Like, does this really matter? Like, does this 5% or 2% or whatever having this trinket or this or that really matter that much? Like, I feel like it adds some level of like texture and interest to the game and like drama, right? Like you mentioned earlier about drama, and it's like thinking back to Classic when I played Classic Hardcore, like I cared a lot about the game, but like I didn't care about parses or whatever. Like, but at the same time, like there was all this like, you know, oh, this guy got this weapon and this guy got this helm and this guy has this tier and, you know, fuck this guy and this guy's blasting my damage now because he has these items, and it like creates all these different situations and these memories and like all this shit. But at the end of the day, like Classic is piss easy and it doesn't matter, right? Like you don't need anything to do any of these bosses in Classic, right? But at the same time, like, I mean, it's still kind of true for retail, right? Like retail isn't piss easy, but just like you said, you don't need this 2%, you know, the 1% damage gain you get from having a mythic house of cards versus a heroic house of cards. Like it's basically meaningless, right? And like there are way bigger edges for you to pick up or for, you know, most players. Yep. And so I don't know, maybe it really isn't that much different from RPGs of old in that, you know, this is just sort of what has to happen, and some people are going to be lucky, and some patches it's going to feel like Raiders are good, and some patches it's going to feel like M+ers are good, and like we're all just hamsters spinning around in a wheel, and we're just, you know, complaining about it or saying the system needs to change because that's what we want. I don't know. I think maybe I'm kind of like, you know, going back against the whole like, you know, just let Blizzard do whatever they want and let them create the experience. I don't know. What do you guys think? Am I crazy?
No, I mean,
maybe it just doesn't matter, right? Like, maybe we're just like taking things way too seriously, and we should just like shut up and play the game.
I mean, for me, my expectations were a check. I heard bad luck protection. I knew what the system they were going to create. They were going to create a bad luck protection system, and this is exactly what I expected.
You clocked it way better than me.
And I'm just sitting here like, okay, I'm getting exactly what I thought I'm going to get out of it. Granted, I do benefit from it, but I also think they're being way too generous. But I can enjoy what Blizzard is doing. I can enjoy an experiment, you know, like scientist, mathematician, etc. Just because I have that game dev thought process. I want to see what happens. And this reaction, regardless of whether it's good or bad, is really interesting to me. Like it helps with my whole like delving deeper into understanding gamers and gamer psychology.
So I think the bigger issue is that it's a perception-based thing, less so the actual power of the entire thing. I think if it was actual power, it's less important than the fact that people get really uptight about damage and about how they're perceived by their peers. And whenever somebody's character, Dorky came in my chat the other day and he was talking, he's like, I was simming Goop Sky against my guy, and Goop Sky just stims 5% higher, right? And whether or not that really matters is not super relevant. It's more about like how Dorky feels about his character relative to Goop's character, and whether or not that actually, you know, mentally plays a meaningful difference on the other members of the party and how they view him. it's more of a perception thing than I think this is the reality of the situation type of thing. Because in reality, the difference between those two characters probably doesn't make a difference as to whether or not that key was timed or whether or not that boss was killed. Very rarely do things like that actually matter.
Yeah.
But the perception and the ability to be able to get into groups, in my opinion, is a more important thing. And having people feel like they're at a distinct disadvantage, I think is always just going to piss people off. Like it or not, whether or not it is, whether or not it's like a good social experiment or anything else, I think the fact that they feel like they're at a disadvantage is a huge issue here. And I think that that's why Blizzard needs to kind of be very careful where they're treading here. I think that this is an issue where Mythic Plusers believe that they're mini gamers and believe that they're getting the short end of the stick once again. I don't think it's true, but they believe that they are. And that makes them mad, right? And then they're like, why am I playing if I feel like Blizzard's just going to treat me like a second-class citizen?
Yeah. I think overall, I would be curious to see where Blizzard goes from here. I honestly, there's a part of me that thinks Dinar shouldn't have even been added in period.
I'm with you.
I think that honestly, they would probably have a happier player base if they just didn't do anything regardless, which makes me happy that they tried something, because Blizzard recently has been in an era of trying new things. That's how we got the upgrade system, right? That's how we got dragon riding. That's how we got drive, And I think I want to commend them for that. And I realistically think a good chunk of this was the first stab at bringing dinars or cartel chips or booleans to a regular season, which has a lot of extra, baggage towards it. And sure, people are upset now, and I think Blizzard might stick their head in the sand here and stick it out, because they can use the feedback from this season to inform how to add a similar system in a future season. Because
sorry, continue.
I was going to say, because if you don't do it for the first time, you're never going to get to somewhere where you want to go. And sure, it pissed people off. I think some people have very reasonable feedback, and some people are just not.
The whining is annoying. The whining is really annoying.
If you want something like this in the future, you have to be okay with Blizzard trying things. Otherwise, you're just never going to get it in the first place. Good, Growl.
I can't believe this is turning into us defending Blizzard crazy. But so I'll continue that strand, and that, I think that when it comes to a system like this too, this was a system that people really, really wanted, and people talked about this a lot, the idea of dinars and being able to buy stuff from the raid. And the problem is, I'm sorry to all the people in the comments who think they know that they can exactly solve this, but for the most part, people's suggestions are total dog shit, and the whole game is structured around rewards and how to earn them. And so when you fundamentally break down that pathway, it really, really messes with the whole game.
Yeah.
And so, people's idea of, oh, in the 0.5 patch, let me just get all the items from the raid I want immediately, right? Sorry, but that's just not a very good suggestion. It has very big repercussions that would be, difficult to walk back if they were to introduce a system like that. So for people to be like, oh, I know how to fix dinars, or this is exactly how it should be, there's a world where, WoW is tournament realm, and there's nothing... you just log in and you get all your gear and you play the game, and there's no MMO aspects to it. And I feel like people would enjoy the game a whole lot less. And I know people don't want to realize that or acknowledge it. And it is true that there are some people that would not, right? For example, Dorky or J.B really, really love the competitive aspect of it. And I know that they would log in and they would play Tournament Realm all day, because Mythic Plus and pushing high level dungeons is also really fun. So I don't want to say nobody's right in that they would like it more, but yeah, I don't know. I think that I just want to echo what Squishy said, is it's very good that they're trying stuff and experimenting, and it worries me a little bit to see this massive community backlash. At the same time, to go back to my original point though, look, we knew it was going to happen. When we saw dinars in the reward track and them saying that they're going to put in dinars, for them to walk it back any amount, we knew there was going to be an outrage, and they really should have just taken the L and went back to the drawing board this season. The other thing that I wanted to add about the very rare items is it's really annoying when there's items that 16 people in your 20-man raid need, Like, it's one thing, for example, a healer trinket.
Yes.
Like, for instance, there's a really good healer trinket from Sprocket, and that might be something that you would want to use your Dinar from, but, you know, you're competing on 3 other people to get that healer trinket, and then, you know, eventually maybe it can go to some alts or whatever, or people that want to off-spec. It's not that crazy, right? But now you look at something like House of Cards, where 16 people in the raid want this trinket, right? What about me? What about me, who I want this trinket on my mage? Like, that's a fucking joke, right? Like, you just laugh if you hear me say I want this trinket on my mage. Whereas, like, I don't think that's that unrealistic to be in a almost Hall of Fame level guild and to be able to get items on my alts in the raid. But it's literally a joke to get House of Cards on my mage, because my guild is like, yo, get in line, buddy. Like, we all want this, you know? And so I think that's another problem, is like, I'm okay. You know, I think having very rare stuff or like super impactful things in the raid isn't so bad, but it just shouldn't be for every single person in the raid. You know, like, I think the whole, you know, Firelath weapon or whatever, this one, you know, evoker weapon, like, now and then, I don't really think is so bad, because, I mean, you can just, I don't want to say you can choose not to play that class, but it's just a lot less impactful on the raid as a whole versus something like House of Cards, where it's like, you know, one person gets it when it drops, and then 15 other people are fucking pissed, you know? It's like, it doesn't really, it feels like it's not really worth the net gain or whatever from having it in.
I want to say something really funny that I just thought of.
What?
They never said what was actually going to be purchasable with the chips. What if Jaster just isn't on the vendor?
Okay.
And they're ignoring very rare. I don't think they'll do it, but it'll be really funny. I don't think they would do it. But think about it.
That would be insanely troll. If it was just no very rare items, it was just
Get your belt.
I don't know. You guys were defending Blizzard a little bit. I think the system's dog shit. Like, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like it benefits.
Oh, Teddles is farming up the comments.
No,
it was sitting there being squishy, left it on the table.
Here's the thing. It's good for pure raiders, but people don't really play the game like that. And then
what about if you're a raider and M+er?
That it's good for you.
What about for me?
It's good for them too. But like, here's the thing.
Yeah, see, so
hold on.
It's only okay. Continue.
There is an increasingly large subset of people that would just are pure Mythic Plusers. There's very few people who are pure raiders. I mean, it does happen. I know some people who just purely raid log and they don't fucking log in for anything else. Squishy's friend Gork, that guy doesn't do any Mythic Plus. That guy abandons Mythic Plus at like his earliest possible opportunity.
He does like all of them on his alt. What are you talking about?
But he's doing 10s, but like, he's not actually doing Mythic Plus.
You're
right?
12s now. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Don't get hostile. I'm sorry. Respect all your 12s. But like, there's some people who do pure raid, but it's not like as common. It's very frequent that you have people who do both raid and Mythic Plus. But the people who are doing pure Mythic Plus is an increasingly growing population of people, and feeling like you're not on equal footing with your peers, whether you are, whether you're not. The fact that you feel that way is completely terrible, and I think that Blizzard is creating a very large imbalance in that way about how people feel versus other groups of players like that. And I think it's creating a lot of angst. Just against different, again, groups of people, and I think that that's ridiculous. And I think that this is just poorly implemented. The fact that Mythic Plusers literally got nothing. Squishy wrote a great post, a great opinion piece talking about basically outlining the entirety of the drama. And part of it that he wrote, I thought really resonated super hard, was talking about the fact that very infrequently is there a system that is implemented that you get absolutely nothing out of, and there are people in this system right here that are going to get absolute zilch out of the dinars, like actual zero, and then some people are going to get a ton out of it, and it's like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah, so
I wouldn't go that far. To be fair, you can get any item on the heroic track that you want.
What if it's not an upgrade?
Like, well, okay, maybe if you're an Omega Mythic Pluser that has gotten Myth Vaults every single week, and so you don't care about it, and you can pug Heroic Raid, right? Okay, maybe then. But what about for your alts, right? Like, even for me, right? Like, my mage, like, I don't know, I'll take a Heroic fucking House of Cards and a Heroic Moxie Jug. Like, that's a slam dunk for me.
Yeah.
And, I'm somebody who's, you know, again, like, raiding it, like, it's more of an alt thing than a main thing for sure. Like, it's useless on my main 100%, but
most people play one character. Most people tend to only play one character.
It's true. Yeah. But I would say most people also raid. So
the question that I would pose is, if you were Blizzard would you do anything to the system before it launches?
Okay.
Not. Or do you think they're going to?
No, I don't
Oh,
think they're going to.
they have to backpedal. Like I said, like here's the thing, right? You say that you gain nothing out of it, but really the only difference is if you're not a raider, you can only get hero track on the items and you don't get myth track. So essentially 2 items that you're getting, or 3 now, I guess, are minus 13 item levels, right? That's all it is. And so that's what 1.5 overall item level on your character. It's like basically nothing, or like very, very small, like 1% damage, right? Let's say 2%.
There's
But it's the
specific issues
perception.
with
It feels bad. It's the perception of it that feels bad. It's the fact that you can't get this item and everyone else can get it,
Yes.
and you just what I'm saying is like it feels terrible. It's the perception of feeling like you can't get something that other people can get, and I think that they should just walk it back. They should just give everybody myth track dinars and not care about it. Go back to the drawing board and think about how they want to do the system in the future. But I think it's with the way it was introduced, with the mix of like, what Squishy mentioned, the bad communication and the the way that the raid planned out. Like, I don't know, people are just like, I think they're just farming and like, is this really the hill they want to die on? Like 2 of your items have 13 less item levels and they can't get myth track, and everyone's pissed about it, and they're just gonna die on this hill and not give it to them and just be like, you have to kill Mythic Muggsy in order to get this. Like, it just feels like so unnecessary for them to go down here and to fight the tide of the community being angry about this. As much as I want to defend Blizzard and be like, oh, it's not so bad, or this is why they do it, blah, 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 like, it's just not worth, like, this battle isn't worth them fighting for. Like, they need to just revert it and go back to square one.
For the record, it is the 3 most important items, and particularly those weapons can change a lot with what's going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think so. If I was Blizzard, I would stick it out, in my opinion. I think that is what, if I was Blizzard, and what I also think Blizzard is going to do. If this was an end of expansion tier, I think they would do exactly what Growl said and just let people have it. I think one of the biggest things that they are concerned about right now, and I will be very happy if they're wrong, is because they specifically said this in the post: myth track trinkets from people who wouldn't ordinarily have it going into the next tier. I don't think that it would affect this tier. I think it would affect the longevity of the next tier if people who have BIS trinkets on the extended myth track from this tier going into next tier. And I think that is specifically the reason why they will not do it. Because that shortens the gearing process from people that typically don't go above a normal raid. And Skarzard brought up Aberrus specifically. That was a raid that was destroyed in longevity due to the content upgrade system. And when you have a bunch of normal mode or even heroic mode people who get gear further than they should be and keep it, really strong, you're shortening their enjoyment time in the next tier. Regardless if they nerf it or not. Because a lot of people say, oh, just nerf the trinkets going to the next tier. Do you know how many times they nerfed Spy Masters and Treacherous Transmitter and it was still BIS for like the entire tier? It's probably going to be that way for these trinkets too. And so I completely agree with you, Growl. Like, if this was the last tier, they should just walk it back and just put it out. But I think if they do that now, they will actually secretly, and not be announced to a majority of viewers, lose a lot of traction in the next season. Because people just have better gear off the rip. Unless they do something crazy like, plus 52 between seasons or something. But I don't think they want to do that.
I mean, we don't really know what they're doing with the turbo loot and how the ramifications are with that for next season, though, right?
Theoretically not.
Okay.
Like, they could do more there. They could revert it, a lot of things. But, they're giving us a lot of power here.
Yeah.
And I think they're concerned that if they gave all these people this Ultra BIS mid-track gear, it's going to make the next season less enjoyable.
So to answer your question, if they came to me in advance and were like, this is the system, what would you do? I'd be like, I would not launch this at all. I would take the L and be like, you know what, guys? We made a mistake. We're not launching Dinars. If you gave me an opportunity to change it before they launched it, I would have given, say, people who got 3K IO the opportunity to be able to use a Dinar and buy anything they want out of Mythic Plus as well, right? These Dinars then are like this universal currency that can be used by Mythic Plusers to buy items on Mythtrack or Raiders to be able to buy items on Mythtrack. And obviously the raid items are much better. I'm not even going to argue that. But at least you feel like you have something, right? And
I don't think that would change anything. You think if you got a token for getting 3K score that let you buy a Mythtrack Mythic Plus item, you would feel any different about the system?
Me? No, I think that the system's dog shit, and it's actively terrible for me because I'm trying to do 18s. There's a lot of people who aren't trying to do 18s who are mad.
I think it depends on your class. I think the Floodgate should get people would enjoy. I like a guaranteed Mythtrack version there.
Thinking of the Priory is really good for some people too.
True. I honestly think Mythic Plus loot is a whole separate topic that is related to the Dinar situation, but is just Mythic Plus loot is its own like whole problem that just needs some looking at a later time.
I'm championing the cause of this Mythic Plus loot system. We gotta go somewhere else with it. It can't be
the only
this
person that doesn't mind Mythic Plus loot. Like, what's wrong with Mythic Plus loot?
Okay, we're gonna do it.
Okay,
do it.
Here's the issue with Mythic Plus loot. It is simultaneously too good and too bad at the exact same time. You start out the season and Mythic Plus loot is way too good. You're getting spammable hero track gear, and you have to farm all these 7s or these 10s or whatever, right? You're spamming this key level to try to fill out every single slot because replacing the gear from last tier to this tier is like super impactful. Of course, it makes sense. But it feels really bad if you have gear from last tier into the future tiers and people look at you differently. And especially early on as well, for a lot of people, momentum matters a lot. And whether or not you fall behind in terms of item level, that affects your ability to be able to get into groups and whatever else.
Sounds fun as shit.
So you're heavily incentivized to spam 70 dungeons week 1, which I'm going to do anyways because I'm a sweaty nerd, but most people don't have the time like you and I, Growl, just to be very honest. And then if you're a pure Mythic Pluser, and this happens, I would say there's a point in the season where raid just becomes so much better than Mythic Plus loot wise.
Hold on. Let's take it one piece at a time. So basically, your first critique of the M Plus gearing is that it's too strong in the beginning.
Yes,
and you just want them to hold you back. Like, you just want them to gate that gear and stop you from gearing.
It's the only thing in this game that doesn't have a loot lockout.
And you want there to be a loot lockout.
I think it should be slower for sure. It's not like I don't think it should drop less loot, but yes, I think there should be a loot lockout in some capacity for sure. But as a result of that,
I disagree. I think that's to me, it's one of the most fun parts of the season, being able to game with like anybody that you want, not really caring about like being super serious about groups, like finishing the keys and being happy to finish a dungeon even if you don't time it, not really caring about score. Like, I don't know, to me, it's one of the most fun parts of the season for doing dungeons, other than, the super, super serious push.
Many people, not everybody, clearly not everybody, because you don't feel this way, don't find farming 7s for gear as good content.
So go higher, then.
Well, that's the point, right? So that's the point, is that then you're going to, remove the ability to be able to spam the keys for gear, and then as a result, you're going to have more accessibility for Mythtrack gear, because the accessibility of Mythtrack gear for Mythic Plusers is honestly pretty dog shit. You're just praying to the vault every single week. Like, that feels really terrible. And I think that there should be something else there. And I don't know how I would go about it, but I think that those are like the two big issues with it. It's like, it's too good early on and it's terrible late game. And it should probably be a little bit more normalized.
I mean, I don't think it's really that bad. Like, I think personally, I mean, maybe other people don't find it fun, but like, I don't know. I find the mad dash to gear up loot extremely fun. It's like one of the few things that I've consistently liked every single season since I've started. Also, with the introduction of crests, well, it's true that you also get crests from raid. Like, now you get your weekly vault, and then you get 90 crests, so you can decide, do I want to upgrade pieces? Do I want to spend 60 and craft something? You can do that a couple times. Like, do I want to get an embellishment? Is there one piece I really, really need, or should I just use the crest generically? Like, I don't know. I feel like there's when it comes to Mythic Plus gearing from a myth track and like raid perspective, I think it could maybe go a little faster, but at some point, you're gearing up way too fast and you're like done a month into the season.
I think that Mythic Plus gearing gears you too quickly. Just blanket. I think it gears you too fast. Imagine if the content was just a little bit easier.
But you don't want to do more dungeons. You don't want to have to do 100 dungeons instead of 70 dungeons.
How many... Did you have to farm a trinket this season from Mythic Plus? Or a necklace from Cinderbrew?
My priest, I gave up getting a good one, and I just crafted one on like week 3 or 5 or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you. You proved my point here.
Yeah, and I did a lot of Cinderbrews and stuff too.
Well, that's in my opinion, that sucks. Like, and for a lot of people, that's just not very fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think
there's a world where you can make the content easier and just have this expectation as well that it's going to naturally get more nerfed by gear. Because right now the expectation is that you zone into Mythic Raid or Heroic Raid with full hero track gear, which it's not exactly the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, I guess my point is like, I think the whole I need one specific item from one specific dungeon and I'm going to farm that dungeon out over and over until I get it isn't the best in the world.
Yeah.
But I don't really have a great solution to that. Like, I think crafting is the closest thing we'll get to it, right? Because, I mean, in theory, you could have... Well, I mean, part of it just had to do with the fact that the drop tables in this season were dumb, and there's, like, no good necks, right? Like, that's a majority. That's the main problem.
I did 31 Dark Flames for a trinket.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Like, I mean, it happens every single season. It's not just like a one-off season thing. I don't know. That's kind of my hypothesis with it too. And then you have...
Yeah, but that's like completely separate from, you're gearing too fast.
So,
you know what I'm saying?
I think you're just getting too many pieces of gear is part of it, right? So you're heavily incentivized to, I guess, hold on, how do I just put this? Squishy, do you...
No, in your mind, like, you should be given less random dog shit pieces of loot, and then you should, like, it should almost feel more deterministic, right? Like, you should just... get the loot
something like
you
that.
Want.
Do you bench
like
people?
You're trying
Squishy,
to stick it in the hole.
Squishy, do you bench people based off of their early item level in your guild?
Depends if there's a damage check.
I would say it has to be. I know you're asking Squishy, but I feel like in almost every guild it has to be very negligent. You know what I'm saying? Like, if some guy doesn't have a neck, I don't think. I sorry, but I think you're just a shit raid leader if you're benching a good player because they don't have like the one trinket that they need or the one neck that they need. However, like if some guy just, I'm really busy in the first week and I can't do any M plus and he shows up to raid with no M plus gear, like, yeah, that is kind of bench worthy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's two different topics that Tettles is talking about. One is that the Mythic Plus, let me try again. From a dev perspective, like a game dev perspective, skipping a bunch of tiers and not having natural progression is weird.
Yeah.
Like, you're skipping a lot of normal because you're skipping kind of the new veteran track, you're skipping the new champion track, you're going straight to hero. I do think that's a little weird. Is it the worst thing in the world? Not really, because you're just kind of jumping ahead. It's like, playing any kind of video game and saying normal's not for me, I'm going, expert right away.
Difference in skill, right? Skill diff.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Like, I understand where this coming from. The other thing is just like the raid Mythic Plus hybrid using the same gear. Like, if PvP gear wasn't on its own little island, PvPers would probably be spamming hero gear from Mythic Plus as well to get that initial gear boost, because it is the best gear at the start of a season. And at one point, the easiest way to get a weapon, a high tier weapon, was from PvP. When that system wasn't completely separate. So like, there's definitely like an overlap there. There's definitely some weirdness there because the raid of Mythic Plus gear is identical. And that's where a lot of this, I think, comes from as well, is they are so intertwined because they are the same gear.
I would I would never separate them, for the record. I think that separating the systems is
either.
Terrible for the game. I think it would just be terrible if you're separating the systems.
I just think that regardless, there's always going to be farmable loot somehow and you know, the only solution to what you're saying is just chain me to the wall and don't allow me to get any upgrades, right? Like think about just think about the progression. Think about the progression of the first month of the game, right? People were farming fucking dirt and getting renown in order to get one champion piece of shoulder, right? They would spend 10 hours farming renown to get one champion track shoulder for a 3-item level upgrade, right? People will do anything if they can farm and get item level power, right? Then it came to delves. People were just spamming delves for maps permanently, like over and over again during that week and not doing any keys. And then eventually they open keys and people spam keys. Like, people are always going to spam whatever, like, I just don't think that spamming dungeons and then like having an RNG chance of getting an item is like, I don't know, that's like pretty archetypal MMO gameplay. Then I think it's like, I don't know. I just like, I sort of see what you're saying. Like doing a dungeon 30 times and not getting the item that you want feels kind of bad, but ultimately, like, I don't know, that just happens sometimes.
Would the
Like,
raid
I think
be,
a lot.
would the raid be better or worse without a loot lockout?
Yeah, an interesting question. What if normal didn't have a loot lockout, and so you could farm normal over and over and over again, so that at least you could have a champion track House of Cards and a champion track tier set.
What if instead of Dinars they just remove the lockouts?
I think the lockouts are good. I think loot lockouts are good.
I'm kidding.
No, yeah, I know what your question was meant to be.
Let me wave my hands real quick. I think the lockouts are good. This would be fucking terrible. Like, okay, for some people they find it fun, like Dorky or JB or whatever, who don't really give a fuck about any of the loot or anything like that, right? They just want to play. They would farm it out and then they'd be like, "Yep, now time to game." But I think in general, it's like it serves a purpose.
Well, so like sort of what you're saying though, again, you're sort of saying like the game needs to protect you from you, right? Like you're saying you would prefer the raid setup of you kill one armed bandit every week, you don't get your trinket, and now you have to sit here and live without your trinket until next week, versus being able to kill one armed bandit 50 times to get your trinket, right?
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
I mean, like I don't, both of those worlds suck in my opinion. Neither. I don't think I'm really that clear, and I think that different items being different is the best solution, right? Like some items being from raid and you have to wait for them, and some items being from M+ and you're able to farm them, I think is the best middle ground.
Yeah.
Versus like having a literal loot lockout on everything. Like what if there's a loot lockout in M+ and you get super fucking unlucky and you get like 4 belts and then that's your loot lockout for the week, and then some other guy gets like double bis trinkets in a weapon, I don't know. I feel like I will defend the loot system right now, and I think that it's the best that it's been since I've started playing. I personally like a little more RNG and a little bit of spice to it, but I mean it's very, very deterministic right now, and I think it's like, I don't know. The reason I defend it is because like who knows what direction they'll take it, right? Like if everyone is being like, oh, they need to rework Mythic Plus loot, like who knows where that would go.
So yeah, I mean, like people compare Raid and Mythic Plus all the time. They're just different.
They're
Raid
very
different.
Yeah.
Like Raid with its once a week lockout, Mythic Plus with its farmable, but it's harder to get the top end. And so everybody is going to value it differently based on what you value. If you want the Myth loot, Raid is infinitely better. But if you value, if you value a specific piece, then Mythic Plus is better because you're able to farm it all the time.
It feels weird because the core part of Mythic Plus is the replayability of the system, right? So you care about the long term with Mythic Plus more often than not because you care about the replayability. Where for Raid you care about progression and clearing the raid as fast as possible. But for Mythic Plus, a lot of it is like long term thinking, and then you get worse. You get less myth gear from only doing Mythic Plus. It's kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of counterintuitive to how you want to actually play the system.
Yeah. But personally, like I think the Mythic Plus system has jank.
Yes.
It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a level of jank that is accepted right now. And if they were to change it, it might end up being worse, as kind of Growl said. So
could be worse for sure. What do you guys think about boosting, by the way, with Dinars?
Oh my god. We didn't even touch this
I
yet.
forgot about
Growl,
this.
Growl, you start.
So with resilient keys, this is going to be the craziest boosting season ever. And now with Dinars, now you have incentive to sell individual raid bosses just for progression, like just so they can buy an item. And it's essentially a guaranteed item, right? Like if you're someone who needs Mythic House of Cards and you buy a Mythic One-Armed Bandit, that's a one-time purchase that you're essentially guaranteeing a Mythic House of Cards. The sales are going to be insane this tier. Like, I haven't really been involved in Mythic Plus sales in a few seasons now, other than like, a random invite here or there, but I don't know, man. Like, if you're selling these individual bosses and you're selling 17 resilient keys and 18 resilient keys or wherever people land, dude, you will make so much gold. The amount of gold that is, and to be clear, like, I think this is dog shit, right? It is so bad for the game. I've obviously benefit from it, but yeah. I really,
yeah.
I mean, here's the thing, right? I think in a perfect world, if you're Jerry and you spend your days picking herbs and making flasks for everybody in your guild, and then in turn they help you get some bosses down or do some Mythic Plus keystones, I think that's a totally healthy, fine arrangement for the game, and I see no problem with carries or like things. I think that's cool, but realistically, Jerry is a guy who swipes his credit card and buys 10 million gold off G2G and then, buys a full set of carries or 4 raid boss clears or whatever. And to me, that's like, it undermines so much of what makes MMOs MMOE. And, obviously you can say, oh, just play the game how you want. Who cares, like, what people have? But it just feels dirty. Another thing that I really, really hate, and I was like really vocal about this. I don't really complain to the like community managers or whatever too much, but the whole like boosting advertising thing is the most miserable shit in the game. When you're sitting there in Group Finder and you're getting declined for key after key that you need, and then just there's all these listings, want to sell boost plus 20, over and over again, you feel like such a fucking idiot. When it just like, it almost feels like Blizzard is like shitting on you and then being like, hey, do you want to buy into one of these groups? Like, and so I was like really, really vocal with trying to hamper down on the advertising and the like Group Finder listings and like improving punishments on those because like, I don't know, it just feels terrible. Like, if you're some guy who wants to pay your buddy a bunch of money and get carried in a key and like, whatever, I don't care. People can do whatever they want, but it's the whole like making it more normalized and the advertising part of it. And like, obviously the Race to World First guilds bring a lot of this too, because they're making, they're needing to spend a lot of money. And it's like, I don't know, it's just such a big part of the culture and WoW, and it feels so bad.
Yeah. So my take on it is I don't think Blizzard should ever consider boosting when doing a system that isn't directly targeting boosting. Because boosting is always going to happen regardless whether they like it or not. People are always going to find a way. And let's be honest, they could be like, no, boosting is no longer allowed. They've said that about a lot of things and people still do them and they don't take action on them. So I don't even think that, unless they actually attempt to enforce boosting, is ever going to do anything about boosting. And it's probably not worth the energy to ever consider boosting because of that.
It's a base take for sure.
I tend to agree. I also think it's one of those things that most people probably wouldn't have considered buying a boost before and probably still won't. Now, I'm sure that there's some people who are swayed by the temptations of being able to get this Dinar, right? And getting this Dinar on Myth Track. I'm sure there's some people that are tempted by that. But in general, most people just won't buy a boost just because they don't want to spend the gold on it. And for a lot of people too, the journey is more important than like the end result. And they care more about like earning these things legit as opposed to feeling boosted towards them.
Yeah.
Maybe this is just disagree with Tettle's day, but I think it has to do with the price. Like, I think just the fact that I don't want to call people whales or whatever, but the fact that the prices for these things are so damn high, like Dude, you're
what's
telling
a
me that
token right now?
Dorky wouldn't? If Dorky could pay $10 and get his boon, a mythic house of cards, he would do it instantly.
Okay,
You know, like
sure.
I bet so many people. If you had a little pop up on your screen that said, "Swipe $10 and get your 2 Bis Myth Track trinkets," and no one will ever know how you got them, and you could press OK. I bet so many people in the game would slam yes to that immediately, right? Like it has to do with the fact that it's 5 million gold to buy a carry or whatever. Like it's cost hundreds of dollars to do this shit.
But I definitely agree with that.
I like that you want to give the WoW players the benefit of the doubt here, but to me, the biggest inhibitor is just the cost, which makes sense, right? If you need 18 other people or 19 other people to do it for you, like the cost has to be high to make it worth it for them.
There are groups in LFG right now that are like 16 resilient, 20k per attempt or something like that, and I fucking doubt people are signing up to that shit. Like, there's no fucking way. There's no way. That'd be a waste of my time. Like, there's. I think it's. I don't know. I think most people just don't want to buy a boost in general too. It is. You know, there's certainly some cost inhibitor part of it, but I think it's more just like I don't want to fucking buy a boost. I'd rather just get good.
I mean, it depends on the player's goals, right? Like, for a lot of people, gearing up is the goal, and there are multiple ways to do that, and one of them is getting boosted.
Yeah.
For some people, the climb is the goal. You know, that is why you run 31 keys of Dark Flame Clef to get a trinket. It's the climb. For other people, you know, you just want to be the best, the highest eye level, and you know, that's their own thing too. So it really depends on the person. But like, my question is, do you think this change will incentivize more boosts or more people to Mythic raid?
Both, right?
But what do you think is more?
What do you think?
I think it's going to increase both, but
probably Mythic rating. There's just not that many people who buy boosts, generally speaking.
I think the amount of people that are good enough to be, I don't know. I feel like the amount of people that are good enough to be in the Mythic rating that don't Mythic raid already that would start are not very high. Like, I don't think Settles is anywhere near the majority here. Like, I feel like a huge majority of people just like think about all the random 3,300 to 3,600 players that are in LFG that you've never heard of or seen their name one time. Like, are they going to join a Mythic raiding guild, or are they going to pay for a boost? I mean, fuck, I don't know. It's probably close. Like, it's probably a lot of them are paying for boosts.
Personally, I think it'll probably be negligible how much this does, and the biggest thing that people will do is sit in town and bitch
and be mad about
That's
it.
Right. That's
well,
right.
Exactly. That's why it's just a huge L. 100% agree.
That's right. And complain on Reddit.
And send out an angry tweet.
Dude, so I think constructive criticism is one thing. The whining part of it, oh man, that's just so annoying. I think there's like a difference between just like being like critical about, oh, you know, the system negatively affects me, I think this sucks, and then being like, fix the fucking game, Blizzard, you gotta fix the game. It's just like, okay, hold on. There's a lot of those people right now. I'm just like, oh man.
The funny thing is, I think it's actually, after the weekend, I feel like people have kind of stopped talking about it. To be honest.
You know, show up in my chat tomorrow?
I actually think maybe after a week it'll die down, and then the 13th will happen, and everybody will be mad again.
Yeah.
But I think it'll probably die down after like another week or so.
What I will say that I've noticed is that players love to talk critically about World of Warcraft and really don't like to just like sit there and play the game for fun, is what I've noticed. Kind of like a movie, right? If you sit there and you get sent to a movie and you sit there and you just like enjoy it for fun, it's different than if you were told in advance, I want you to be like, give me your feedback on this movie. You kind of watch it in like two different lenses, right? Yeah, it's kind of like us. We sit here and we kind of talk about all the things that are happening and we give our takes on them. And then in some aspects we have to be critical about it, but you know, it's kind of interesting that people love to be critical about World of Warcraft. And
well, this is gonna be like probably way too normal of a take, but if you think about it at its core level, any game is just a challenge or a series of challenges.
Sure.
And then our goal as a player is constantly to think about the hurdles that are in front of us and then how to overcome them. That's like if you were to think about gaming at like the very
Yeah.
core level, that's all gaming is, right? So while it's like we can laugh and be like, oh, everyone always complains, everyone's thinking about the negative things. Like, I mean, that's what gaming is, right? It's a constant series of the developers throwing a bunch of things in our ways, and we navigate through them and get to the end. And you know, like you look at a game like Elden Ring or Sekiro or whatever, where it's like, I mean, they just like fucking troll you and everything is miserable and you spend hours on bosses and then you beat it and you're like, that was great. Like, now you do this and you get someone else to do it, right? It's like when you smell something that smells awful, what's the first thing that you do? Yo, dude, smell this. And you just hand it to your buddy, right? Like, why? You know, but it's just sort of what you do. It's
Oh,
like,
God. Yeah, that's a good way. Yeah. All right. Now it's time to talk about equally controversial 11.15 launch. Where do we want to start?
oh, man.
I don't think the Dinars would have gone as bad if 11.15 wasn't absolutely mind-bogglingly empty.
Dude, by the way, not only is it mind-bogglingly empty, I was unable to log in for 24 hours after the patch launched. I literally got stuck on retrieving character lists forever, and I literally couldn't log in.
So when around what time in the game did we start the podcast? Do you guys remember? Was it during Dragonflight or was it early War Within? I don't.
It was during Dragonflight, pretty late during the beta.
End of Dragonflight.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because we would talk about Fire Rack and Tindral and stuff. Okay. I'm thinking that I feel like every single launch of every single patch since we've started our podcast has been so bad and so buggy.
Okay.
And it's actually crazy now. I'm looking over the show notes. Dude, I can't believe all this shit that happened on a patch that was nothing. This patch was not, it introduced nothing. My understanding was it added one thing to the game in terms of content, which I don't even know what it is, and that thing was broken and you couldn't complete it.
Okay, so like, I completely agree with you. It's the 0.5 patches that are the worst. And that's because, for some reason, they consistently forget to add hotfixes, I believe, from that they've made in the past. Like, it happened with 11.0 into 11.05 as well, where hotfixes, I believe, were just missing. Because they are running multiple things at the same time, and, you know, they add it to the live game and forget to add it to 11.05, and then it's just forgotten.
Dude, there's no way their branch management is that bad. I refuse to believe do you not remember 11.05?
Okay,
I remember Shadow Priest not getting their aura buff and Enhancement Shaman not getting their aura buff. I just refuse to believe that a software development company that makes a video game's branch management is so bad that they don't merge their branches. That's just like, I mean, it is ridiculous if that's true. Right?
Was it 11.05? What was it?
I don't remember, but I remember Shadow Priest and Enhancement Shaman just not getting their stuff merged correctly. I do remember that part.
There was something that was missing, yeah. Regardless, there's something definitely wrong with their 0.5 patches. As Growl mentioned, the new content that released now and wasn't time gated. Oh, I was just gonna go to something else first.
Okay, hold on.
Was the new reputation, and that came with 3 daily quests every day, and a scenario, and it's your very typical open world scenario where you go and do stuff like the Time Rift. That was bugged and not working. It was so laggy, you didn't get credit when the boss died. That lasted for over a week.
Yes. So, I mean, it's so weird because on one hand, we're like looking at these things like, oh, Blizzard's willing to cook here. They're willing to try this. Like, dude, some of these things are such red flags. Like, dude, these are not the what's back to my comment about a game being a series of hurdles. These are not the right kind of hurdles that we want to have laid in front of us when we're playing the game. This is not the same thing.
You know, in like in BFA when you went into like the battle for Nazjatar and literally you could not press a button because it was so laggy.
Yes, ruined gaming, ruined my game.
Ruined gaming. That was the level of lag in the scenario. Like the boss would spawn at the end of like the Time Rift scenario or whatever, and you would just tag it, and you know everybody would be standing there, not doing anything, and just typing in chat because the chat's not too laggy, and be like, "What the fuck, Blizzard? Like, what is this content?" Like, and then the boss would die, and nobody would get credit for it, and it'd be like, "This is the worst content of all time. There was nothing added in this patch. What's going on, Blizzard?" Oh, what a mess.
So some of the other bugs I remember because they affected our guild. They removed the raid skip or something, and so you
Yeah.
couldn't. So we're basically on Mugsy, and we're trying to, get Hall of Fame or whatever to be in the top 200 guilds that clear the raid. But we have to re-clear the raid anyway. We couldn't not re-clear it. Then also there was a bug on Mugsy where it was like some series of spell queuing where if you phase him at the right time, he would just bug out during the last phase, which is like by far the hardest part and a huge part of the fight. And so the first day, we were literally just trying to bug out the boss the entire night of Prague, just because like we know it's gonna get fixed or whatever, right? And we're trying to kill this freaking boss, and we lost like 2 hours having to re-clear every other boss to get there anyway. Unfortunately, it was patched halfway through our night or whatever, and we didn't end up getting it to work. But oh yeah, and there was the Great Vault bug too, where so before you thought you were unlucky with your Great Vault, now you could get multiple of the same items in your Great Vault.
Yep. The best thing about this one is like we have no time frame until we're gonna fix it. And then they posted that night, like we're fixing it tomorrow morning, and all these people already like opened their Great Vaults, and we're like, well, shit.
Yeah, by far the funniest part about that was I was streaming that day, and dude, everyone was so scared. Everyone was like, "Can I open it? Is it safe? Can I go near there? Should I go near my vault?" And then I open up Dratnos's weekly vault opening video, and he's like, "Yeah, it'll be really funny if I open my vault and I get 3 belts. I'll get the limited edition bugged vault bugged vault in video." And he's like trying to bug out his vaults, like hurrying up and opening them before they fix it. It's like, yep, that's content creator life and WoW for you.
Yeah, so there was all that. Then there was the Renown bug with the raid, and this is the most dangerous one.
Oh man, that happened. Yeah, that happened to us too. I forgot. Dude, this is all one nothing burger patch, by the way. All this stuff is happening.
So this bug was people realized how to do this, which was the first issue. But second issue was it was something that you could do accidentally. And the issue was to bug out and exploit this boss, you logged on a level 70 alt. Every time you logged on a level 70 alt, you would gain 5 Renown levels. Why? I have no idea. But that was what happened. And guess what? They promoted a leveling buff in this patch. You got bonus XP and reputation when leveling up. Can't exactly ban for that. Not that they probably would at this point, but so a bunch of people just logged in alts, whether accidentally or, they thought they were going to level, then they decided not to. Logged in and got Renown 20. And that comes with, I think, 18% damage and a lot of cool stuff for the raid.
Yeah, people running around on the Tyrannosaur mechanical mount or whatever that you get for the end of the track. Yep. That was another funny one too, because once that bug got discovered, I'm like, oh, sick, I got to do that. And so I'm like logging on to level 70 characters and it's not working. And I'm just like, where's my fucking Renown? And then everyone in my chat's like, wow, it just worked for me. Holy crap, I'm Renown 25. It just worked for me. And I'm like, can you guys shut up? I'm trying to cheat here. And I'm like logging into all these characters. I'm like making new evokers called like Renown Exploiter Guy and then just logging into it to see if it works. And so I unfortunately didn't get to benefit from that one either. And then also that one got fixed, I think, midway through the raid night as well.
Yeah.
Where that damage and healing buff got reverted.
Yeah, it got reverted back to the 6%. We'll have to see if, the 9% tomorrow is working as intended, because I don't know what's going to happen going forward. There's 3 states to be in. One is didn't bug the Renown at all. The second is you bugged the Renown and you didn't turn in the quest. And the third is you bugged the Renown and you turned in the quest. And I don't know which of those are going to be working tomorrow.
Because it's very possible that you bugged out the Renown, you didn't realize it, and then you just didn't do the, you know what I mean? You didn't talk to the guy, because why would you?
Exactly. Like, you saw a leveling buff, you logged on your level 70, and you started leveling your character. And maybe your raid is until Saturday, or something. And even then, you probably wouldn't have noticed it. So, who knows? What's going to happen tomorrow? But, the heck did this happen, man?
It's a really important patch,
Tell us about
Lots
the Hall of
stuff.
Fame, Squishy. So we talked about this last week, how the Hall of Fame was kind of doing some weird nonsense. What happened since then?
Yeah, so the Hall of Fame closed, or not closed. Blizzard decided, this hasn't been confirmed because they never actually said it, But everybody's pretty sure that they changed the Hall of Fame mid-season because 1 or 2 guilds bought a galley lockout. And since then, they've fucked everything up. So their first hotfix failed. Or not failed. They added the ability you needed to kill One Arm Bandit and Muggsy in order to get Hall of Fame in, plus galley, obviously. Except those 2 kills were not retroactive. Which is the biggest red flag that I think you could have ever seen.
Yeah.
Why the fuck would you do this and not make it retroactive? So they come out then. Where's the blue post?
Not this one either.
That one.
Oh, this one. Yes, of course.
Then they come out and say, "We believe that you need to kill One Arm Bandit and Muggsy." Not you will. We believe.
We believe. Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, Blizzard, please, God. So then all this happens. Guilds kill Galley. The next week they reclear, and people realize that the Hall of Fame is not scored on when you killed Galley. It's based on when you killed the reclear. So if you killed Muggsy and Galley after the hotfix, your Hall of Fame timestamp is based on when you killed One Arm Bandit again.
Yeah, because you already had it was just a checkbox of did you kill all 3.
The Hall of Fame is now completely out of order, and it doesn't mean shit. And then some guilds just can't proc Hall of Fame, period. There are some guilds that just recleared and didn't get the achievement.
I was gonna say, does my guild count towards that? But no, we didn't clear.
No, they literally recleared this week every boss and just didn't get the achievement. So then I assume Blizzard saw that, and they were like, well, this isn't good for us. So then they went in today and started adding over 25 guilds manually to the Hall of Fame, bringing from 174 to 195.
Manually adding that goes hard.
I think they did it manually, but if you pull this one up, actually,
where is it?
Let me find it. Hold on. Here. So this is the Hall of Fame. Scroll down to 175. So from 175 all the way down to 198, you'll see a lot of guilds really killed Gallywix amongst the same time. It's crazy how many guilds killed this during this time.
Burst of everyone killing it at that time. Must have been a really popular raiding time.
yeah, that really popular NA midday raiding time at EU as well.
What about China, man? Did they not help China out here?
I don't know. half the guilds that killed it before this are still missing the achievement. So they apparently only added the achievement to some of the guilds that killed it. And so nobody knows what's going on. And it jumped. This is the last day of the reset. Hall of Fame is supposed to close today because they just literally spammed the last 25 spots. And then they come out and we're like, guys, we're holding it open for 1 more week. Again.
I don't know. As
too.
someone who may benefit from getting into Hall of Fame by it extending for another week, I don't know if this is supposed to feel good. I mean, some people are happy about it, I guess. It reminds me of I guess the guild is probably pretty obvious, but the guild that I was in during Battle for Jazara Lore and then Crucible of Storms. Crucible was a notably hard raid, and not everyone was sticking around for that raid. And we happened to we came very close, but we didn't clear the raid. But then pre-patch week to the next patch is when they added essences. And so everyone in our guild got, what was that? The damage essence that you just press on the boss, the starter one or whatever.
Oh. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It starts with a C or something. I don't remember. But
something
anyway.
Flame, right?
Crucible of Flame.
Crucible of Flame, yes.
Yeah, so everyone in our guild got Crucible of Flame, and then we walked into the raid and killed the boss with 20 Crucible of Flames in pre-patch week, and we got the achievement for Hall of Fame for Crucible of Storm. Did it feel good? Not really, but I mean, I guess we'll take it. So I guess maybe Drogo's guild will somehow get Hall of Fame this tier as well. I don't know.
Dude, it's... Honestly, at this point, after last year, they just randomly decided to improve Hall of Fame by a week, and this year they're doing you're increasing Hall of Fame by a week again. I feel like they should just remove this at this point. It has no bearing on really anything at this point. Crossroam used to be tied to it. It's just Crossroam from the start now. Is there a point to this?
It doesn't feel prestigious like the rank 1 Mythic Plus title is, and I don't know why.
People still care. I think enough raiders care, and it's sort of like the M plus thing where it's like having small breakpoints or like things that guilds can achieve. I think is worth. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Hall of Fame is a nice middle ground between like being a super sweaty guild that cares a lot about rank and like being a
Sure.
random cutting edge guild.
But like, regardless of the whole situation, they should not have fucked with this mid tier.
Oh, no.
I don't think like we did this for like 2 guilds, maybe? Definitely 1, maybe 2. And you basically just ruined the Hall of Fame for everybody else. So you played yourself, I think, on this one a little bit.
I think it's one of those things that the better your guild is, the less you care about the Hall of Fame. Like,
Probably true.
The more Hall of Fames you get, the more numb you get to getting Hall of Fame, and you're like, yep, this is whatever. I don't care. I think it's one of those things that's like, whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also depends on where you're at, right? Like it's same like for us in title. Like getting title doesn't really matter to us in M plus, but it's like if you're somebody that's on that border, it's like
Your first title too is like a huge deal, right?
And that's like a huge accomplishment too. It's not us saying like, oh, title. You know, just the fact that we've been playing the game so long and we know everybody, and it's like not really, you know. Honestly, you know, it's probably a bigger achievement for someone out in the streets pugging their first title than someone like
absolutely
getting it, right?
It's a time commitment thing too. For Mythic Plus, it's kind of similar with rating. It's a huge time commitment thing, and it's kind of this thing stating I committed all of this time and was able to actually get the rank 1 Mythic Plus title. Okay, what's this cool stuff that we've seen this week? What is this thing, Growl?
Ooh, okay. This might be a little bit of a mini rant. So don't play the clip yet. So this is from hardcore WoW, but I'm gonna segue it into softcore and like normal retail. So this is Onyxia in hardcore. For people who aren't familiar with Onyxia, there's a random mechanic that it does in phase 2 called Deep Breath, where it basically flies across the room and puts like a path of fire. It's like a pretty easy to see what's going on. However, for some unknown reason, at some point, this ability just broke, and it basically never casts it, to the point where I've never seen it cast one single time in hardcore. It's never ever casted in hardcore, and so now you can play the clip here.
Do we need
this
audio?
Is the first, no, you don't need audio. And this is the first time that I've ever seen Onyxia's Deep Breath cast in hardcore. You'll see the DBM like light up in the middle of their screen, and they're all just kind of like, everyone just kind of standing there. Like in theory, you see breath and you should move out of the way, but like they don't know where to stand and they have no idea, and it just fries half the raid.
Oh.
All these guys lost their level 60. Now pause it right there. So notice there's a couple people there that are like 20% health, 10% health. And they're using what's called the Flask of Petrification. Basically, it's like a very expensive consumable that grants you temporary immunity. And it makes you wonder, if you think about it, how in the world did they use that flask at 20% health? Like either they used it, they were like, oh shit, it's a breath, let me use the flask, or they died, right? Like how could they possibly, like watch, now rewind the clip, watch how fast that damage ticks.
This is that druid.
Yeah, you can see the druid, right? How in the world did multiple people press it so fast in that damage? And I was talking to a buddy, I'm not going to name him, but it's like, you know, it was mostly his idea, or he brought this up to me, is that like, are they fucking cheating? Like, do they have some sort of a script that like recognizes their health and like immediately inputs into the game to press this thing? Like some sort of like, because that was a thing in like old school hardcore games like Diablo or Path of Exile or whatever. It used to be called Chicken, and Diablo was like, it was basically a cheat, right? And so it made me wonder about like, how many people in WoW actually cheat? So I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole yesterday, and I started like looking at what sort of stuff people talk about or ask about or whatever. Funny enough, by far the most common thing is a rotation helper or a rotation bot. And it basically is just like, you just walk around and your character will just do your rotation. So basically like, there are cheats where you just like stand next to the boss and move your character, and your guy will just like do all of the moves, and you don't have to worry about doing anything. And apparently it's really, really common with classes that are like melee classes that can walk around and don't have to cast, right? So think of like Outlaw Rogue, Warrior, like Ret Paladin, like those sorts of classes. And apparently there are actually a lot of people that use stuff like that. And one thing I was told is that you can actually see them because you'll be in Group Finder and it'll be like a complete dog shit Ret Paladin player, and then all of a sudden they'll do some like insane lay on hands or sack on somebody who like, you know, gets bursted down and then immediately gets topped up because it's like a rotation bot, right? That's like automatically using spells and stuff. So I guess I didn't really have anything to conclude or like to ask. I am kind of wondering if I mean, I'm sure you guys don't really get involved in anything like that at all, but I wonder if anyone who's listening in the comments especially has a story or knows anything or knows people that like how rampant do you think cheating is in World of Warcraft?
So it depends on the season and it depends on the game mode. In Arena, it is a lot more prevalent than in PvE in my experience. So there's different kinds of cheats, right? There's the people who do gold farming bots, and that's probably the most common cheat, right?
Yeah.
Where they just have these bots, they farm gold, they farm herbs, they farm whatever, and they sell it on the you sell it on the auction house. The second type of bot is, I would describe them as the level 1 bots sitting in Stormwind or Orgrimmar spamming LFG, wanting to sell stuff for blazingboost.com. That's probably the other most common form of bot. Then in Arena, there are kick bots. I think that's probably the most common one, although there are some people who, you know, their character's fully piloted as a bot. But more often than not, it's like there's like a kick bot that will, if they see somebody who's casting, they can like frame one kick you. And that's been, I would say that was the most prevalent in late WoD. I remember it being super common late WoD. And in the middle of BFA, kick bots were fairly typical to see. But they're not always super common. It kind of comes and goes. There's bot ban waves fairly regularly for that kind of thing. And RBGs are also pretty common too as a way to farm honor. I don't know what they're doing with the honor, but in BGs and RBGs, bots are fairly common. In PvE, I feel like I rarely encounter them, though.
I think things are too complex for those. They used to be in the back in the day. But like,
I don't know. I mean, I don't think I just think my point, I guess, is you might not know if you encounter them.
agreed.
Like how do you know that the random guy that you just played with in Group Finder isn't botting?
It's you watch their move. I will say you watch their movement sometimes, and there are people that like, there are some bots, they're not that sophisticated, and they'll be like attached to somebody, and you can kind of tell that something is up. Or like they'll be like attached to like a mob in like a really weird way, and they're like following the mob in like a way that a human just like wouldn't move their character, and you're like, what is going on? It's like you have somebody on like /follow, for example.
Like /follow, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, something like that. And you're like, whoa, hold on, this is weird.
It's also, yeah, I mean, the way you know when you have at least a mass spotter, like for Irving or stuff like that, is when you DC randomly and get reported. Because that is a very common thing these days, when you just get mass reported by a group of bots, and it just kicks you off the server due to the auto filter. I
do think there's a chance that person with the petrification potion, say they were using something to help them with petrification potions, I think there's a chance they could use weak ores to do that for them.
Well, that's kind of what made me think too. So I've been playing Arcane Mage a little bit too, and there's a guy, like a big Mage Theory crafter guy named Porum. He makes guides and stuff, and he has a weak aura. We'll call it Barrage Helper, I think. Basically, a big part of the Arcane Mage rotation is you need to know when to use your spender.
Yeah.
And you use your spender based off of what procs you have and your ability to generate your resources. And he has this weak aura, and if you look at it, it's like a 20-part conditional of like all the different situations of when you would want to press Barrage.
Yeah.
Like, do you have this proc? Do you have these charges? Do you have this amount of haste? Like, do you have this? Blah, blah, blah. Do you have these talents? And it's kind of like a rotation helper. It's essentially a rotation helper for one button, right? Like, it tells you exactly when you should use that one button. And it feels a little bit cheating, but at the same time, like, I don't know, the game's hard as shit. I don't care. Like, weak auras are basically cheating.
Yeah.
But I was kind of thinking about it, and I'm like, you know, if you could translate this into inputs, you could very easily make an Arcane Mage bot that fucking owns.
Yeah.
Like, you could just take that weak aura and just make it so it presses Barrage for you every time you need to, like, you know what I mean? Like, if it did, obviously you can't do that with weak auras, like, that's against the rules. But all it would take is some sort of cheat that connects to that weak aura that presses the physical Barrage button every time. And a lot of times, the barrage is conditional off of what you can press next, so it'll know what to press next after you press barrage to get your resources back, and it'll be like, yeah, I don't know, you could create a very, very nasty arcane mage bot if you just like did it and tried.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder like how many people in LFG have stuff like that.
So, sorry, like two things. One is with that the complexity of encounters and their randomness to like swirlies and stuff like that. I don't think you could ever like go super high into high end content with that kind of bot anymore, because there's a lot of like movement that needs to happen and like decision making that wouldn't.
What about like a melee class?
Do you use Hikili?
I mean, Hikili is a rotation helper, not like. Are you talking about movement bot or specifically?
No, I'm talking about more about rotation. But I'm talking about physical button presses. I'm talking about like yeah. I'm talking about like I'm talking about like, okay, I'm controlling my warrior, and all I do is move around on it, and it targets the right thing, and it hits the right button over and over and over again for the whole fight.
Yes, I agree with you. For Arcane, it's probably a little harder because there's a lot of cast time stuff. Like you'd have
that's why I would say it's more prevalent in like melee classes.
Yes, I would agree with there. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, the second thing regarding the actual clip, I would personally lean towards the slightly more. Well, I have a question first. How like on call is your like Petri button? Like, is it close?
I would say for good players it is. A lot of players that are, especially, no offense, but people who are still raiding Onyxia in hardcore WoW at this point are probably not the super giga reaction guys. Like, I mean, dude, people will run around for like literally a minute and a half without remembering to Petri, and then they'll fucking die. Like,
right. So,
if this was really good players, I could see it where like they realize that they're not in the right spot for breath and they mash it. But like, chances are, I don't give many of these. Like maybe one of them I'll give credit for. And if you listen to the comms too, you don't need to, but it would be one thing if someone announces it, but no one even says anything. Like it's not like some guy says Petri 1 second before and then everyone starts clicking it. It's literally like there's barely any comms at all, and then like 3 different people all end up at 20% health. I mean, maybe not all. I don't know. It was just weird to me because like, I mean, they died instantaneously. Like how? But I've also but you would expect someone like me would know, right? Like you would expect that if that existed, I would know. That's why I'm so confused because I've never heard of anything. I have no idea how to find it. No idea what it's called. Like if that exists, but I mean, to me, that the clip seems pretty damning in terms of like how multiple players could have petried when like, dude, it literally kills you instantly, that breath.
It's so like knowing what I know about the classic WoW, which isn't too much. 1, there's a tick rate, and 2, Onyxia does a deep breath often. And you mentioned that, and if you were doing this boss and you expected a mechanic not to happen, and suddenly you're surprised by a mechanic that you probably know will kill you, it's entirely possible that you panic around and fiddle around for a bit before realizing you needed to press your oh shit button.
Yeah.
And if a bunch of people did that simultaneously with a tick rate of whatever the classic tick rate is, I do think the probability suggests that if enough people press Petri around the same time, 1 or 2 people, as we saw in the clip, would happen to press it at the exact time when the breath does 1 tick but not 2.
That's possible. I didn't think about the classic tick rate thing. I still think it's unlikely, but it's definitely much greater than 0 possibility.
Now, what I will say is weak auras can't press inputs for you. So for them, it wouldn't be a weak aura thing. It would
have to be some sort of script.
It would have to be something else. Inputs in the game are typically pretty sacred, right? Like Blizzard requires an input for an action, and weak auras can't do that for you.
Yeah. For me, until I see something else, I would just lean it to be like happy coincidence of somebody pressed something crazy at the exact right time, because we've seen that on retail even, like somebody just happens to press something at the exact same time, and like for example, there's a bug right now with the Druid tier set, the bear one specifically, where if you happen to proc a mangle with the talent fluid form at the exact same time, like on the same tick, you shift out of bear form and go cat form. Yes, it can happen while you're doing the boss, and it will kill your tank. That has happened 5 times in the last like 3 weeks. It has to be the exact same tick, but it happens that often that it's just like noticeable in my brain. Like randomness does happen when you do it enough. It is possible. I'm not saying that's what happened, but like that's the side I would lean for now. But I totally could see it. Like cheats used to exist in the game. That is totally real. But yeah, that bear thing is fucking annoying as shit. Please fix it, Blizzard.
Growl also loves the conspiracy theories.
Oh yeah.
All right, for my cool thing this week, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's just some tech. So apparently on coin-operated Crowd Pummeler, if you take him and you're a Vintage Demon Hunter and you get onto this pipe and you vengeful retreat as high as possible into the air, you can get the coin-operated Crowd Pummeler to, I would say, wedge himself into the wall. And then if you don't move at all, you get all of the coins basically spawned right beneath his feet. But on top of that, the bombs also spawn directly underneath him as well. And so then you use the interact button that Squishy talked about last week, and you just mash it over and over again. And then you can get 6 stacks of the buff immediately if you want.
I had Dorky do this in a key a couple times, and this is so unbelievably fun as Arcane Mage. Like knowing exactly when you like line up your touch and all your buttons, because the bombs go off instantly, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, you can control it immediately, get 5 bombs in, then delay it, and then kick the 6th one in. You get like the maximum predictability, maximum uptime. Blizzard basically fixes everything nowadays, so I'm sure this will get fixed. But if you're a tank and you want to let your DPS have a good time, this is a pretty funny tech that you can do.
They won't watch this far into the episode. Don't worry about it.
True.
All right, what you got this week, Squishy?
All right. Well, it's Blizzard released a housing post the day after the Dinar article.
Oh yeah.
I personally think it's a little bit of a guys release something, but you know, who knows? And they realized that there's an interesting screenshot there that they showed the dungeon loot for Seat of the Triumvirate. Drops a housing item in midnight. Now, interesting choice, in my opinion, to pick Seat of the Triumvirate because it contains ethereals, of which I do think that ethereals are going to, you know, there's the Zalatas cinematic that showed an ethereal, so interesting choice as many people have pointed out.
Give up the goods. It's Seat next season.
I'm gonna leak it, right? I'm gonna leak it. It's
Give up the goods, Squishy.
It's Seat. It's both the Tazavest dungeon, and then it's another new dungeon, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not supposed to know, so that's what I've heard. But these guys might know, so they might not be able to comment. But I've heard. Well, so also to add into why this is more damning or whatever is because in the article they specifically say that they don't want it to be exactly like transmog farming, where you're just like doing a dungeon over and over again every week, especially not going back and doing, you know what I mean? And so for them to say that and then show it on the drop table of a dungeon, everyone's like, well, wait a second, you just said it's not going to be like transmog farming, but this looks exactly like it. And the only logical reason would be if it was part of the rotation next season.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously, like, it could mean absolutely nothing. I just thought it was really funny that they mentioned Seat. Because obviously they like their theming, so
yeah, I mean, it's well speculated that that's a dungeon from next season. Whether or not anybody knows anything, that's like seems likely.
Dude, I laughed so hard because that one meme, I think Squishy posted it, the in emergency break glass, and then in the glass is the Dinars, and then the Dinar shit went on fire, and then I just imagine in emergency break second glass, and it just player housing. Yeah, oh yeah, the Dinars, yeah.
Dude, he posted this on the 22nd or whatever. Oh god.
But I mean, the player housing seems sick. Like the ability to collect things, like
I love it. It's awesome. Yeah, seeing the player housing stuff in Final Fantasy has like opened my eyes to how cool it can be. Considering that, like, I don't care about any of that shit. Like
now, Tettles, are you actually gonna decorate your house?
Yeah, but dude, look at Tettles behind him. He's got a little lava lamp going on. Tettles definitely has a little bit of he does have the statue, so Blizzard sent all the important people the WoW Omega edition that has that Griffin statue, and so he did kind of just like, you can tell he just threw the package on his couch and then built it. And then he built it on his couch and then was like, where do I put this? And then just threw it right on the table, and then it's been sitting there. So maybe there's not as much thought into it, or maybe, I mean, it is a nice piece. I don't know. I'm not gonna judge. I mean, maybe
I-
there's less decoration than meets the eye.
Kettle's house is just gonna be everything he collects just plopped in the living room. Just no order. Just oh, I got this. Just there it is.
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, the answer is probably likely not. I just don't like. I don't mog. I don't really collect mounts. I just kind of play the game to play with friends. The collector stuff never really appealed to me, so I just was like, whatever. It's all about the same.
The thing is, though, as a streamer, how many times are you gonna like hearth back to your house or be in your house, and then some guy in the chat goes, "Oh my God, your house is empty. You don't have anything in your house," before you start throwing shit everywhere?
Zero people are gonna say that shit to me because they know that I'm just the worst person they know.
No, dude, literally everybody complains about
my
mog.
guy.
Yeah, I don't mog my guy either. Everyone still complains about it. Everyone's like, "You're gonna fix that mog."
Kettles, new, you know that little like, it's not the bit system. The thing that you get on your stream when you watch for a length of period.
Oh, like
time?
channel points, yeah.
Channel points. Yeah. Make that a channel point, everyone. Get enough channel points, place one item in your house.
Holy shit, that's Twitch chat's house now.
Oh shit, Twitch's house. All
right, now for the random secret Wowhead post that just got posted while we're live during our podcast.
Yeah.
On to you, Squishy.
Yeah, Dinars.
Another blue post.
Everybody's getting Dinars except for Tettles. That's so weird. All right.
No, there isn't anything. I was just kind of hoping there was.
Yeah. Should we go to Q&A?
All right, let's move on to Q&A. If of course, if you want your Q&A answered on the show, tweet at the BenchWow on Twitter or DM the BenchWow on Twitter, and we will be able to receive your Q&A. We tried to remove the Q&A that had anything to do with Dinars this week, mostly because we were going to cover.
Don't worry, I put one about Dinars on.
Okay,
there,
perfect.
It's tangentially related.
Fantastic. We got even one about Dinars. All right. So first question from Matt. He says, do you think there's a chance that player housing materially affects the WoW economy? And would that end up being a good or a bad thing? What do you think, Squishy?
I think it's a good thing. I mean, there are billionaires in WoW right now, and there are people who are struggling to make gold. I think opening an avenue for people who are just, tailors, leatherworking, like another avenue to just get gold. Maybe they get a cool fucking chair in a dungeon, or, a rug that looks really fucking sick in their raid. They can sell that for some gold. Cool. I mean, more avenues to do interesting things, I think, is always going to be good for the economy.
All right, so here's the bench official get rich quick plan. Okay.
Okay.
So a lot of the items from player housing are actually made from old world professions. So if you want to get rich in WoW, this is what you're gonna do. Okay. Step one, you're gonna
look. Are you serious? Wait, is that true?
Yeah,
it is, right?
Yeah.
Not all of them, but like some. There's a lot of them that are made from old world professions. Okay. So what you're gonna do is you're going to find an item like on the PTR, or like when the stuff gets data mined, that looks really cool. You're going to corner the market by buying up all the materials and things that you need to make that are on the auction house already, and farm a lot of it. Make a bunch of them. Then, as soon as that housing patch comes out, you're going to send mail to all of the streamers that you can think of and write in it, "Hey, I love your stream, blah, blah, blah. Here's a piece for your house. I made it." Give it to them, and then they'll put it in there, right? Because it's the day of the patch. So then every streamer is going to have your item that you have the market cornered on, and then you're going to list them in the auction house for like 20 times what it costs you. All right, and if anyone does that, you can send me a cut on Illidan.
It's pretty good. Yeah, but Tettles, this is the Brill coffin. It costs Sorrow Moss, which is what expansion is that from, Growl? That's classic, right?
No.
Fuck.
Iron Bar is classic.
Iron Bar is definitely classic. Sorrow Moss. Let's see. It is.
Is that Kata?
Maybe Kata if it's not.
Added in 1.11.1.
Oh, so it's late classic.
Yeah, it sounds like classic.
I don't
Gathered
believe
from
you.
Sorrow Moss, Swamp of Sorrows.
Maybe Growl knows less about classic than we thought.
It's an herb they added in Swamp of Sorrows?
Apparently. So classic. I'm pretty sure Royal Ink is also classic. Now we're going through old. Nope, that's. I don't know. This is Wrath Watlick.
So
Wait, no. Classic
Roy-
Inscription.
What, did you used to make mongoose?
Okay, now we're going to the weeds here.
Wait, what? Oh no, I lost some classic credibility if this is true.
all right, we're gonna move on. Next question from Pat and Jory. He says, hello, Benchies. I'm an AOTC Raider and KSM Mythic Pluser. This means I've never been much more than Heroic Gear. This season, though, I'm trying to push 3KIO. I'm still just doing 10s and 11s for now. But this has meant that I've been getting more Myth Gear than I have ever before. Before I started getting Myth Gear, so at 658 item level, I felt like my damage was bad in both Mythic Plus and Raid. I'm still only 663 item level, but I felt like my damage has increased around 15 to 20-ish% in both Raid and Mythic Plus. I honestly have no idea why. I haven't really made much effort to get better. I'm kind of playing with the same people, and I haven't significantly restatted any of my gear. So here's my question. Why do you think I'm doing so much better? Is it item level so much more powerful this season relative to past seasons? Have I unknowingly hit some stat breakpoint? Is there some fundamental difference to how classes work at lower item levels versus higher item levels? Is there something else? Thanks and have a good one.
I think number one, item levels are big. Like that's why all we talk about is item levels and dinars and this and that. Is that doing big damage is the most important thing in the world, and item levels helps you do that. Also, one of the biggest things that helps you get good at the game that isn't item levels is repetition. Just spending more time in the dungeons, like living one additional pack that you didn't live before, getting one additional cooldown use can massively increase your damage. Like, I'll look at dungeons and I'll see mages who are doing like literally 50% more damage than me and in an overall. And I'm just like, how in the fuck? But I mean, you add it up and it's like, yeah, it adds up,
So I will also say as well, doing higher level content, trash packs live longer, which is going to disproportionately create you to have higher overall. And whenever more people in your group actually will kill off trash packs faster, or your raid boss dies a little bit quicker, it has a compounding effect as well, where your damage is higher, because your damage is higher for longer periods of time, especially whenever you're doing these AoE pulls. And so it kind of has this compounding factor where the people that you're playing with matter a lot, and like how good or bad they are and how geared or not they are, that matters. The level of content, as you do higher content, your damage just ends up naturally increasing a little bit as well.
As your gear goes up, you're going to pull bigger too, just naturally, even if you're not going up in key level.
Yeah.
So your pull size is going to increase. But honestly, I think the biggest thing is just the more you play, whether or not you are intentionally changing things, you're just going to get better. You're gonna know that this swirly takes a long time to land. I can finish my cast this time, and then you'll move out.
Yep.
Whereas when you see a swirly for the first time, you're gonna be like, oh, it's a swirly move, and it lands like 2 seconds later, and you're like, oh, I could have in your brain, you're just like, I could have stood in that for longer. Or what you learn is actually deadly or not. Some seasons there are ground effects which don't do damage. There are some ground effects which instantly kill you, and learning which ones you have to move out of and which you don't is also really important. When am I in danger? When do I have to panic for my life? Those are all things that just kind of happen almost like subconsciously just by playing the game.
Congratulations for getting addicted to World of Warcraft, because now you're in too deep. Okay, last question from Mesamir.
Hold on, going back. Sorrow Moss is renamed Plague Bloom. So it was called Plague Bloom in Classic, but it was renamed to Sorrow Moss after Cataclysm. What, dude? I'm not. Dude, no one just invents some herb in a game that I put that many hours into and I didn't know what it was. Okay.
I love how he was like half paying attention to the last question. He's literally like researching Sorrow Moss, trying to figure out what it was.
Credibility back.
He's won back classic people points.
Yep, needed those back.
All right, from Mesamir, they ask, with all the talks about Dinars, what's the bench's thoughts on similar systems for Mythic Plus and even Delves? We've had bad luck protection for hard to get trinkets and items from Raid, but nothing for getting Mythtrack items out of other sources that are potentially BIS for some classes. Maybe tied to some sort of achievements like 3KIO or killing the underpinned on question mark difficulty. Is deterministic loot good? I guess is kind of an interesting question, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, it's like sort of the same thought, right? Of like, if you're not a raider, like getting this item out of the raid is like very annoying for you. It's probably similar on the other way around, right? Like, imagine you want a Mythtrack trinket from a dungeon, like you're literally having to do 8 dungeons a week, right? Because you're multiplying your chances every time doing one weekly does not get you the trinket that you need very quickly. I feel like it would be confusing, but I guess it sort of makes sense. I don't know. I was wondering what you guys thought about this one.
I'm okay with Deterministic Loot, but I actually kind of liked the original timing more than I do right now. I think it's too early for Deterministic Loot. I think the 0.7 patch is actually the correct time for Deterministic Loot. I think 0.5, people are still gearing. We're not even done the myth track yet. In terms
I
of
got a ways to
progression,
go.
yeah, like in terms of progression, especially if you do this season turbo boost thing going forwards, like you have the regular start of progression, then you have the 0.5 patch, which is the turbo boost to push you forward, and then the 0.7, which nobody like. The 0.7 is probably the least played patches of the cycle.
Yeah.
Give people deterministic loot then, and give them actual deterministic loot. I think that's fine.
I'd be down to completely open up the deterministic loot on a 0.7 to raid and mythic plus and delve, say, if you want it. And I think that you could
not for free.
You could gate it behind 3KIO and Zekvir on or underpin on the question mark difficulty. I feel like those are like pretty. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, like you have to work for it, but I'm okay with it on the 0.7.
Yeah, especially on the 0.7.
Do you think it like negatively impacts people who are prepping for next season? So, like, let's say they added some sort of like Omega currency, or like let's just say, for example, that you added a vendor that had all the good delve and M plus and raid items, and you could literally buy them like very, very cheaply with like Valor stones, for example. Right?
The issue is the very, very cheaply. It needs to be limited still. It is bad luck protection, not a new gearing process in 0.7. Like it should be
that's
one.
Fair. That's fair.
One.
I guess I was just thinking like
2.
how that would, like maybe let's say you're somebody who didn't even play the patch, but it like gives you some incentive to be like, all right, I'm gonna grind some stuff and like get my guy. But what you said, actually, I've never really considered earlier about the idea that like, a lot of players don't have that. They go into the next patch with full mythic bis gear, right? That's not everybody. That's actually like probably a minority of players.
Yeah.
And so like allowing those people to get full mythic bis gear out of an easy to do vendor when their end game is AOTC might like shorten the season for them a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas normally they would go into it like 10 item levels, 15 item levels less.
Like give people a reason to come back, do a little end of season push. I think is pretty healthy. Or at the very least, get your cool loot so that you engage with the content of the 0.7 patch, which, reminder, 1107 was Siren Isle, which was honestly more content than 0.5 so far.
Well, 0.5 is a joke.
I mean, that's not saying much, yeah. 0.5 was negative content.
I think 0.7 is the perfect patch for it in terms of 1 or 2 pieces of deterministic loot, get people back, play the content, gear up, get hyped for the next get hyped for the next raid tier, and then carry that forward. I think would go really hard. So that's where I would put it. On all 3, like delves, mythic plus, and raid. All right.
I think that's it.
it.
Oh my gosh.
That's about what I expected when I was looking at all the news for this week.
Dude. Yeah, what an up.
Man, we have MDI coming up too. We have lots of stuff to talk about.
Dude, I finished my Shaman 0 to Hero too. Oh my gosh.
Nice.
I
almost have all-time 16s on my mage.
Oh my gosh.
I only need Priory 16.
That is insane. All right.
Does that tech still work, by the way?
What?
Lieutenant tech?
No, they fixed it.
No,
I heard they fixed it. Okay, yeah, okay.
All right, let me turn off the podcast.